Board members, it is 6:03, and so we need to go ahead and get started. The audience will make their way to their seats. At this time, I'd like to call the Granville County Board of Education into order for March 7th, 2022. At this point, we do have a quorum. All of our board members are here with the executive staff, and so we call this meeting to order. Dr. McKnight, will you offer our invocation, please?
Yes, let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we pray for your guidance and we seek your counsel on decisions that will impact educational outcomes for our students. We ask that our actions in this meeting reflect your will and our vision for the children of Granville County. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Ms. Lebrecq, will you lead our pledge?
Yes, please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. We have several guests that we'll introduce in just a few moments. At this time, Madam Superintendent, do you have any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have one adjustment to the agenda this evening. It was an additional item added. This item can be found under the policy section, and it is item number 8.09 this evening. I'm asking that this be added to the agenda, please.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Board members, do you have any adjustments to the agenda? All right. As you've seen, we need to add 8.09, the Spectrum E-rate Category 1 contract. Would like to accept a motion that we accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lebrecq and a second by Mr. Peace. Do we have any discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, this stands as our agenda. Tonight, we're very excited to have several groups and guests with us tonight. And so for our first special recognition, Dr. McLean, would you introduce Leadership Granville?
Yes, sir. I am extremely delighted to have with us our 2021-22 Leadership Granville participants with us this evening. Do we have a spokesperson for the group this evening by any chance? If you'll just come to the podium, just some brief welcome remarks would be just fine.
Hello, I'm Neely with the third. I'm the high school principal at Falls Lake Academy. I was in Leadership Granville in 2019, and I've joined since then the steering committee, and we have facilitated after COVID. This is our first class after COVID, and we are really, taking stride. We really want to thank you all for letting us attend, and the questions were answered very well and very in depth. Again, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Leadership Granville, welcome. Dr. McLean, would you like to make any comments?
We're just delighted to have these community members with us this evening. It's always a pleasure when they come. Great questions, great dialogue, and it's just an honor to have them tonight.
Board members, for new board members who have not been on since the last time this group came, this is made up of leaders throughout Granville County in different roles and different agencies and institutions. They are picked to facilitate this group, and then they are toured around the group county to see the services and the government agencies and the industries that are available here in Granville County, with the intention of preparing them for leadership roles that may be new leadership roles, or maybe improving on their leadership roles that they already have. So we're very excited to welcome them and want to thank them for being here this evening. All right, our next recognition, this one still just makes me smile. We have a swim team.
I'm so excited. This is incredible. Dr. Winborn, will you take it away, please? And I think this deserves a round of applause, everyone, because this is an inaugural swim team. Yes. Come on to the podium, ladies. Come on, Principal Fuga. Yay.
Madam Superintendent, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, tonight it is my privilege to introduce you to the inaugural J.F. Webb High School swim team. Not only was this the very first swim team at J.F. Webb, but it was also a very special one. In fact, they were nominated for and received the Conference Sportsmanship Award. Yes, that's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. So while the team started out with a few more members, we had these two young ladies that finished strong. And not only did they do well in the pool, but they also have done an amazing job as students in their academics. So an additional congratulations to both of you. Congratulations, Reagan Lees and Carly McGee. This way about 2 or 3 steps. There you go.
Come on, Figa.
Big smiles.
Excellent.
If you wait just one moment. I'd also like to recognize their coach, Miss Wendy Lees, who is also a teacher at J.F. Webb High School. Without her, this team would not have gotten started, and I know it was a lot of hard work, and we're very, very proud of you. So thank you, Ms. Lees.
And while we're at it, Mr. Fuga, don't go far. I'm not certain our board has had an opportunity to meet you in this environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Principal Dr. Michael Fuga.
Thank you. Individually, come see me, please. I'm the admin on duty for baseball, so I have to go.
Thank you all, J.F. Webb. That was incredible.
All right, that's awesome. All right, our last special recognition this evening, we have a very special recognition for an outgoing district level employee. As you were made aware a month ago, that Ms. Day has accepted another position with a nonprofit, and so we wanted to make sure we sent her out in Granville County Public Schools fashion. And so I thought I saw her slip in the door.
She's here.
There she is.
So, Ms. Day, will you come to the podium, please? She thought she was coming to do budget work tonight, everyone.
This is why we kept telling you had to be there. Board, we would like to propose to you a resolution of recognition and appreciation on behalf of Miss Elizabeth Jackson Day. If you will listen to these words. Whereas the Granville County Public School District has been fortunate to have a dedicated staff member with 14 years of experience committed to the mission of the district. And whereas the members of that staff is now, a member of that staff is about to embark on a new senior leadership role in a nonprofit organization serving children with special needs. And whereas we as members of the Granville County Board of Education wish to extend our utmost appreciation for the work that this staff member has done to make education an exciting and joyous experience for students of our district. And whereas the board wishes to extend our sincere best wishes for every happiness in the future of this staff member who will be leaving the district effective February 28th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that the Granville County Board of Education recognizes and appreciates the service of this employee departing the district, this employee being Miss Elizabeth Jackson Day, Assistant Superintendent of Finance, and wishes her well in all future endeavors, and further that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded and entered into the minutes of the Granville County Board of Education on the 7th day of the month of March in the year 2022. Board members, this comes to you as an item of action tonight. Do I have a motion that we accept this resolution?
So move.
I have a motion by Mr. Peace. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Williams. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. So, Ms. Day, to this resolution, we set our hands and seals. Myself as the chairman, Ms. LeBrecq as the vice chairman, and Dr. McLean as the superintendent of schools. We want to thank you so very much. And so don't go anywhere. Stay right there. Board members, at this time, we'd like to recognize some special guests we have in the audience. We have the chair of the Granville County Board of Commissioners, Dr. Tony Kozart. We have the vice chair, Mr. Russ May. Commissioner members Sue Hinman and Zelodius J. If you all can come forward. And Dr. Kozart, I believe you have something.
Thank you so much, and good evening to all of you. This is really a bittersweet moment for us as liaison to the Board of Education. I've had the opportunity to work very closely with Mrs. Day over the years. And so tonight as we come, I come with a great deal of regret that she's leaving our district because we have really enjoyed the relationship. At this time, I would like to ask our Vice Chair, Russ May, to please read a proclamation that we have from our board.
I want to read it to you, not with you back there. He's honored I've served with you. Board of Commissioners, thank you, other commissioners, for being here tonight. Board of Commissioners, proclamation honoring Miss Elizabeth Beth Jackson Day. Whereas Elizabeth Beth Jackson Day has served Granville County Schools for 14 years with honesty and integrity as Finance Director and Assistant Superintendent Finance, and whereas Beth Day brought many skills in government, accounting, and budget management to her position with the Granville County Public Schools, and whereas Ms. Day gained the respect and trust of those she worked with day in and day out, including the Granville County Board of Commissioners and Granville County staff, by tirelessly demonstrating her calmness, forthrightness, professionalism, work ethic. And Beth Day will pursue her passion and her joy and work with it as the Chief Financial Officer with Voices Together, a nonprofit for children with special needs. Now and therefore be it proclaimed that the Granville County Board of Commissioners extends its sincere congratulations and best wishes to Elizabeth Beth Day, and thanks to her for her many years of dedicated service to the children and the citizens of Granville County. This 7th day of March 2022, attested by Deborah Weary, Clerk, and Tony Kozart, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Beth.
I must say that there has not been one occasion when we have gone back to our board and shared any information that Mrs. Day has sanctioned that anyone ever questioned her honesty. It has really been a special joy. She did everything for the right reason. She took this position for the right reason. She served for the right reason. And she's leaving us for the right reason. And I wish you all the best.
Well, I'm Sue Hinman, and I'd just like to say I'm so very, very proud of you for the 14 years and for what you've done for the children of this county, but for what you're getting ready to do for the children, the special ones. Thank you, thank you, thank you for what you're going to do.
Like I said,
Beth, all these years that you have served Granville County as the school board finance, we appreciate you. I can echo everything that Chairman Kozar said, because I know all over 14 years it's passed through us, and there was nothing said that whatever you did, whatever you done, you passed in. It was on time. It was on time and on key. and the step you're finna make now is a larger step. You know, it's a step that more needed, and we appreciate your effort and your decision of going. I know it was a tough decision, but you know, those tough decisions that you make, and when you can look back in the morning and say that was the right decision, and I think this time you said that was the right decision, and we appreciate you. We're gonna miss you. But I'm talking, we're gonna miss a word.
Well, okay.
Yeah, okay. But we appreciate you and enjoy your endeavors, okay? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Day, on behalf of the Granville County Board of Education, we want to give you this plaque for your 14 years of service to the schools, students, and staff of Granville County Public Schools. Board members, it's my distinct honor and privilege to come before you this evening and let you know, as you know, what a jewel we have in Beth Day. I can echo everything they've already said of the trustworthy, the integrity, the way she led her team as well as our district. And I'm just very thankful for that. I think Commissioner Jay had it right on the money that if it had been an easy decision, then we weren't doing something right. If you wanted to run from us, then that would worry me. And so I'm thankful it was a hard decision. But just know on behalf of myself and Becky how much we love and appreciate you, how much I appreciate what you have done here, but what I'm so excited to see what you're going to do once you leave this place. And I can just see a butterfly coming out. I've told you numerous times that I have watched you grow over my 6 years here, and that you are maintaining confidence and integrity and just faithfulness, and we appreciate that. And so thank you so much. This is from Becky and I. Board, I'd like to give you the opportunity if you'd like to say something to Ms. Day.
I'd just like to say that, I mean, I've only been working with you for about a year now, and I've really enjoyed every moment of it. You're definitely going to be missed, and I think that the next person that we get is going to have we're going to have some exceptionally high expectations for what they're going to do in this job, and it's because of you. So, thank you.
Ms. Day, you've, I remember you from high school, child. So,
Because it was just a couple of years ago.
And you know, since you've been here on this staff, you've done a remarkable, incredible job. And, you know, I just appreciate having known you. I appreciate what you've done for the Granville County Public Schools. And I'm sure as you move into another place, you will do just as well. God bless and thank you.
Beth, I've told you before, you're your mother's daughter. Her mother taught me in 5th grade. That tells you about how old I am. But anyway, we appreciate everything you've done. And the thing that strikes me about your work and your presentations, it's not just numbers. You see the staff, the kids, and the teachers that are behind the numbers. And that's what makes you so special. And we're going to miss you.
I would just like to add also, I'm like Ms. LeBrecq. I've only been here about a year or two, so it's just great what you have provided and gave me the insights to being a new member to the board. And that last session that we had, Budget 101. She taught that session. You just don't know how you break it down and say, okay, I get it, I get it. Thank you so much, and yes, we're going to miss you.
Yes, Ms. Day, we're definitely going to miss you. Appreciate you so much. You make budgeting easy to understand. I hope whoever fills your shoes will also bring along the clip art, because that's a big part of helping us take the fear out of understanding the budget stuff. So we wish you well in your next endeavor.
Beth, I told Drew that you were retiring from the school system, and he said to tell you he really does need a babysitter if you'll come on down. That's an inside joke. Anyway, we wish you the best. You know that. I saw William Sunday, and he looked at me like, "Are you mad? Are you mad? Are you, is everything okay?" And I said, "It's the best thing she's ever done." And he smiled, and I think it's the truth. You're really moving into something special in your life. And how could anybody say anything but the best of luck, and thank you for all that you do for not only for Granville County, but what you've done for the parents and literally every hospital that you can think of. It's been a labor of love, and you have been a true inspiration to do what you do. So thank you.
We appreciate you. Wish you the very best. So let me take this from you. I'll wait the superintendent.
Well, we're going to try to do this the right way. We're going to be big girls tonight, Beth. You've been absolutely incredible. This was my very first superintendency, and I had the pleasure of doing it with Beth Day. And I told her I've worked in other districts, and she was the best I've ever had. And we've talked about that, but she's also one of the best people I've ever met. And so where you're going, I just hope they know how lucky they are. And if they aren't, my mother always says this to us, to the four of us children: now, if they don't know how to treat you, you just come on home. So I say that to you as your big sister tonight. So Beth, on behalf of the executive team, you know this team, your brothers, your sisters, and on behalf of the children, the educators in this district, and every life you've touched, we proudly recognize Mrs. Beth Day for 14 years of service. We love you, sweetheart. Go make us proud.
Wow, y'all. Y'all really know how to make a girl feel special. When I was sort of reflecting about my time, I always have to bring tears to people's eyes, but a couple of the things that I remember that I think about when I think about our community, and when the commissioners were up here speaking, I'm thinking about my daddy and how proud he would be. He was Granville County, Oxford native, and just so proud. And I appreciate that. The words that you spoke just mean so much to me. And all the Board of Education members, you mean so much, and your confidence in me is just incredible, and just means the world to me. I appreciate it so much. I think about the things that have happened over these years, and one of the things is, and a lot of people know this story, probably have heard this story, but a former county commissioner came dressed up as Santa Claus to our house for Will, on a horse-drawn carriage. We said, I had put out there saying, how is Will, where was a Santa Claus we could find? I had kind of put that out there. Where's a Santa Claus that would be patient, that I could get a good picture of Will with? Because, it took a little while to get him to smile and everything. And that commissioner said, no problem. Santa Claus will come to your house. and he sure did, and that was a county commissioner, and that means the world to me. And then I think about a Board of Education member one night heard his scanner and heard a distress call from my house and knew my house, my address, and contacted the superintendent. And so Dr. Howard came to the hospital the night that Will passed away. That the nurses came and said to me, "Your boss is out there." You know, and I thought, what are you talking? I mean, the words didn't even register. I'm like, what are you talking about? I think your boss is here. And Dr. Howard, like 10 o'clock at night, came to Granville Hospital. So there's a lot of things that are said about this community, you know, and all, but those are the things that I remember. You know, that is what this community means to me, and being a part of the Board of Education, working with the Board of Education and working with the school district. Those are the things that I remember in my life that really changed and had an impact on my life, and that I just mean so much to me. So I just ask you to do what you do, you know, you living in this community and those type of things, and loving and caring for the people and the teachers and the students that are in this community. I appreciate, and the taxpayers and the, you know, doing that means so much. And I just wanted to relay that to you tonight. So I don't know what else to say, but I thank you. I thank you so much for this recognition.
When seasons change, they do just that. And we've had to make some adjustments and some change, and we are grateful that we have an interim who has stepped up. She is not new to Granville County, but Mrs. Vicki Hines, will you please come forward? Because, Vicki, we want to say welcome to the role, and thank you for accepting our invitation to serve as our interim finance director. This is one of the most hospitable communities I've ever been in, and we are just grateful you are still with us. Your first week was nothing short of just crazy, and we thank you for showing up on Monday morning this morning. But we welcome you and want to give you all the love and support as well, because we appreciate you still being right here with us as well. So we wanted to introduce formally to our board Ms. Vicki Hines.
Board members, at this time, we'll hear a report from our superintendent, Dr. McClain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, good evening once again to everyone. I tell you, that was something. Feel like I need to take a deep breath. Mrs. Day and I have been together 5 years. She's been incredible. Good evening to our board members, our parents, our students, community members, guests, and friends. I would once again like to congratulate tonight's red carpet honorees. It is always a joy to have our friends from Leadership Granville County. Some are still with us here. And I am just as proud as I can be about the new adventures our county, our school system, our children and teachers are still making in essence, at JF Webb High School with our swim team. How exciting was that tonight? It has been remarkable this month in GCPS in many ways, and tonight I'd like to thank our employees and our students. Tonight's agenda will share some of those items with you. Now, since we last met, everyone should be aware that our board voted unanimously that masks would no longer be required, and that was effective February 28th. 1 week in, I would like to share that things are going quite well for students and adults, with words like respect and courtesy remaining at the forefront of the options of individuals. Yes, we are being very respectful and courteous, and people have choice, and we will respect both. Now, this week is National Social Worker Week. Please join me in showing our school social workers and parent and family liaison coordinators some appreciation this week for all they do to support our schools, our teachers, our students, and their families. Now, do not forget to mark your calendars that March 18th is now designated an early release day for traditional schools and April 14th for our early college high school. These half days are considered wellness days, and a focus on mental well-being is encouraged. Calendars for the 22-23 school year will be presented later on this agenda. And I would like to personally thank everyone who participated in helping us select tonight's recommendations that will be presented. So whether you served on the District Collaborative Committee or provided feedback on the survey, your opinion is important and valued. Last week was National Read Across America Week, and as you may know, it is my favorite time of year. Our amazing educators did an outstanding job in helping reading come to life even more throughout the course of the week. I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank Miss Lauren Piper, who's with us this evening. She was the event organizer and executed the week incredibly well. Mrs. Jackie Baird and Dr. Felicia Whitaker assisted, and we appreciate them as well for their efforts. It was simply a delightful week, seeing and hearing all of the incredible stories about students, teachers, district office staff, and special guest readers all week long. I personally enjoyed reading to my 4 classes and grade spans at South Granville High School, Butnerston Middle, West Oxford Elementary, and Creedmoor Elementary. Our entire executive team and Board of Education members were also special readers, reading to at least 2 classes. Everyone was busy last week with reading at the forefront. Tonight, I extend an extra special thank you to our community readers this year. They were Mayor Jackie Sargent, City Commissioner John Tovey, County Commissioner Russ May, the Honorable Judge Catherine Burnett, Chief Keith King, Lieutenant Adam Carlson, and Officer Tiffany Smith, all of the Creedmoor Police Department, members from the Sheriff's Department, Mrs. Tanya Evans with Duke Energy, Mrs. Tanya Weary, and Mr. Derek Cameron from Vance Granville Community College, Mrs. Susan Hiscox from the town of Butner, Mrs. Melanie Baldwin and Mrs. Amy Carlson, librarians with Thornton Library, Mrs. Amy Kemp, South Branch Librarian, Reverend Jenny Wilson, pastor at Oxford United Methodist Church, Mr. Devin Akers, associate pastor at Covenant Life Church in Butner, Reverend Nick Garner, Next Generation pastor, Creedmoor, North Carolina, Mrs. Dr. Linda Frederickson, the Masonic Home for Children, Mrs. Donna Owen and Mrs. Pamela Kearney, retired Wilton teachers, and Mrs. Lauren Robertson, Executive Director of the Granville County Chamber of Commerce. We are so very grateful for the reading support provided by each and every one of you. Thank you, thank you, and thank you. You are all great in our book. Now, Dr. Seuss's birthday was on March 2nd, and some of our students had the opportunity to actually try those green eggs and ham. Now, I can't say I was that brave, but it was the cutest moment all around. And we were also able to capture some neat photos we will have on our website very soon. Our task force work will get underway this month, and if you were involved last year and would not like to continue, or if you would like to serve on one of our task force commissions, please let Mrs. Alston Shave, right over here, our administrative assistant, know at shave@gcs.k12.nc.us. Now, finally, March is Youth Art Month, and tonight's art at each of our board members' seats comes to you from Stovall Shaw Elementary School. So if you get a moment to reach out to Stovall Shaw's art department and/or students, please do so. This concludes my remarks this evening, Mr. Chair. I wish for everyone a wonderful March.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Board members, do you have questions for the superintendent? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to my report and other board members. I'd like to, again, as Dr. McLean has, welcome everyone that is with us this evening. Every minute counts is more than a slogan used at Granville County Public Schools. It's a call to action for all of us to make sure that we are using the time and resources that have been entrusted to us for the best possible outcomes for our students. Recently, I had the opportunity to tour an innovative school campus in a neighboring district. What struck me is that we could and are already using technology and innovative approaches to help our students achieve the goals set before them. All of this is more than flowery words. No, it's a call to action to make Granville County Public Schools the best choice. This past Thursday evening, I had an opportunity to present to the Butner Town Council along with Dr. Winborn and Ms. Salisbury. We presented the wonderful things that were available to GCPS students in the area of career and technical education. By the time we left that night, I believe we educated the council on a few things, but we also made some contacts with industry leaders that were present. So, even watching your team make every minute count as they were doing that. I too was very excited to participate in Read Across America Day with many of our board members. I too would like to thank Ms. Piper for everything that she did to coordinate this. I also want to especially thank her for not giving me a Dr. Seuss book this year. Summer remediation and learning opportunities will be another opportunity that we will hear about this evening. This is more than just the old summer school model. This is helping our students achieve the things that they need to achieve in order to be prepared for the next school year. With so much unrest in the world, I implore us to make every moment as an age-appropriate teachable moment as well. Last week, I had the opportunity and privilege to sign our application to the state school capital grant. I hope that this move will be the start of not just a new beginning for GC Hawley, but for all of Granville County. I want to thank our commissioners for their part in this, as well as our board for approving this application. Finally, I want to encourage our students and educators to continue strong as we head towards spring break. Both groups have worked very hard so far this year, and they deserve that time of wind down. Tonight, you have lots of action items in front of you, and so as we move forward this evening, I want to remind you that what we do is in the best interest of children. We are to be the cheerleaders for the district, and we are to lead with integrity. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to other board members. Do you have reports tonight?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have a brief report. I, as a member of the North Carolina School Boards Association, we met on the 28th of last month. And you all may or may not be aware that the North Carolina School Boards Association decided to stop associating with the national, along with my last count was 18 other state associations. And they're in the process of forming a consortium of state School Boards Association. That should be up and running in the next few months, and I'll keep you abreast of what's going on with that. Right now, the founding members of the state associations are in the process of deciding on fees that they're going to charge, and they're planning to have a local association for just those members. Will probably be sometime the latter part of this year, the first part of next year. But as they make progress forward, I will keep you informed as to where we are and what we're doing and what it's going to cost us.
Thank you, Mr. Peace. Any questions for Mr. Peace on that? All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to remind folks that on March the 24th, the students at Webb who have won the state competition with Virtual Enterprise, they're going to have a 1 hour, I don't know exactly what you call it, but they're going to make presentations like they will in New York, and they want board members and others to volunteer for an hour at JF Webb to poke holes in what they present as they get ready to go to New York. I think the Shark Tank kind of approach. So anyway, I promised that I would say something to you all. The 24th around, I think it's noon. Yeah, it's noon, 12 to 1. So please volunteer if you would. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. O'Houlihan. Other members? Ms. Tamara, did you want to add something to that?
Email Tamara Rodabaugh that you would love to be there on that day, 12 to 1 at JF Webb.
All right. All right. Board members, there in your package, you also see the minutes and the notice from our academic and finance committee meetings. Those will come with some recommendations later on in the meeting, but I want to ask the members of those committees, did you want to say anything before we get to that point? All right. Any other reports? All right. Ms. LeBrecq, do you have a date for the art gala that is the inaugural art gala for GF?
Put me on the spot here.
Sorry.
My notes. The Arts Gala, let's see, is having, accepting submissions need to be in by April 7th, and the silent auction bidding will be from April 28th to May 3rd.
Okay. The actual event's the 28th?
The actual event, yes, the opening reception is the 28th from 4 to 8 p.m.
Okay. Board members, this is coming from the Granville Ed Foundation. This is the first year that they're doing the gala, and so if you'll try to make an opportunity to be there for that. Any other reports from board members? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our public comment section of the meeting. Dr. Winborn, I believe you have that list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, earlier this afternoon, I emailed you the comments that were submitted electronically during the window today. There were, I believe, 4 that were submitted, 3. And I included those in an attachment and emailed them to you. This evening, we have an additional 3 individuals who have signed up for public comment. So when you all are ready, I believe the first person is Ms. Danielle Hayes. You may approach the podium, and I will give you 5 minutes on the timer and give you a heads up when you have about a minute left.
Thank
So
you,
Ms.
Dr.
Hayes,
Winborn.
and the topic is State of GCPS.
Well, before I start, I just wanted to point out that I have questioned a lot of board policies and administrative actions over the last 8 months, but never once have I ever questioned a line item in the budget. So thank you, Ms. Day, for everything that you've done and the way that you've been thorough and responsible with taxpayer money. I appreciate it. The state of Granville County Public Schools. The crimes against our children over the past 24 months in the name of health and safety are some of the most atrocious, widespread abuses ever perpetrated by adults and elected officials. We have irreversibly scarred an entire generation and set back education in our county by years. So now will the board solve the problems that the board helped to create? What do we do about low test scores? You can't congratulate yourselves for growth in student achievement when we started with no growth from last year. With nearly 2/3 of K-8 students a year or more behind in reading and 3/4 of them a year or more behind in math, you can't claim improvement when you made the decision to keep them out of school and classrooms and relegated to screens for months longer than necessary. Do help address learning loss by focusing on more in-person educational opportunities, like after-school tutoring and in-person curriculum nights, and immediately halting unnecessary online curriculum required, like iReady, that some of our students have for homework. If we learned anything from distance learning, it's that more screen time does not equate to higher student achievement. What to do about staff shortages? It's hard to feel good about 107 open positions and giving retention bonuses with strings attached when some of our administration makes 4 times the average salary of teachers in our county. All the while our staff struggle with job insecurity and flee our school system, while the board goes back and forth on school consolidation and closure decisions. Do help to make GCPS a less volatile work environment. Do make a decision about consolidation and be transparent with your plan. Do celebrate the rollback of restrictions that means less work for our worn-out staff. Do continue to roll back nonsensical and unsustainable policies so that our staff can get back to what they signed up for, educating kids. How to address abysmal student attendance rates. You were the ones that voted to keep kids at home for the majority of the 2021 school year. Then when they did come back, it wasn't full-time. You can't tell students and families that they are not essential one year and then turn around and try to change the narrative the next. So do give them all the in-person celebrations, ceremonies, and athletics to look forward to in school without requiring ridiculous restrictions that make them want to stay home. How about not requiring COVID testing as a condition of playing sports or going to prom? Do take down social distancing signs, because if they're dancing with a date or playing a contact sport, there's not any social distancing going on, guys. How to address budget shortfalls. Fact, budget is based on enrollment. You cannot continue to blame charter schools for parents pulling their kids out of the public school system. If students were having their needs met, then they wouldn't leave. If parents felt that their children's education was the priority and parents' concerns were being listened to and taken into consideration, they wouldn't seek other educational options. Do immediately require schools to offer the option of in-person parent-teacher conferences. We can go to a basketball tournament in one of our gyms with 400 people from all over North Carolina, but our parents can't have a face-to-face conference with one teacher about our kids' grades.
1 minute, Ms. Hayes.
Please, someone have the courage to make the motion to discuss this tonight. We have principals right now waiting to hear if they can hold in-person conferences for the upcoming end of the third quarter. And don't leave it open to interpretation, because you will have principals that shut it down and some that jump on the opportunity. This needs to be mandatory. We can do better if we work together. If you want to increase test scores, improve the work environment for staff, maintain enrollment, and have a budget, then send parents a clear message that you want us involved in our schools. Change your visitor and volunteer policies back to the pre-COVID versions and welcome parents, volunteers, and PTO members back into every school. Show us that you actually care what we think and that you want to work with us for the betterment of Granville County schools. Thank you for putting children over politics.
Mr. Chairman, the next individual that signed up for public comment is Misty Taylor, and the topic is GCPS. And she also has with her her son Trevor, who has signed up as well to speak tonight.
So if you don't mind, we would like to adjoin our times if possible.
All right, I was going to say, and you can also remove the microphone from the stand if you'd like.
But we stopped and bought a step stool just so everybody can make sure they can hear him.
Okay.
When he gets up here, everybody give him a smile so he's not intimidated. All right. Got it? Good evening, board members, Dr. McLean, Chair, Ms. Chair. I would like to start with a thank you. I know we are always at y'all, but for once, I just want to say thank you. I'm thankful for you taking the time to make a vote for our children to have the option of being maskless. I fully support a person's right to wear a mask or not. I fully support a person's right to be vaccinated or not. Everybody is in charge of themselves. My son decided that he wanted to speak this evening, and he said, we're going to talk about our First Amendment rights. I said, well, couldn't make a better place there, buddy. The 5 freedoms it protects is speech, religion, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government. Together, these 5 guaranteed freedoms make the people of the United States of America the freest in the world. Before agreeing to accept the Constitution, the founders of our democratic republic demanded that these freedoms be protected by an amendment to the original document, the very first one. There is no legal age you have to be to exercise your First Amendment. They are guaranteed you from the day you were born. There's also no citizenship required for the First Amendment protection. If you're in the U.S., you have freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition. I know you've heard from many parents about their views and how we feel about mandates, clearly. I would like for you to hear the voice of a student that goes to school every day and has only missed 1 day in 5 years. He has 8 honor roll. Dr. McLean has had more than 1 honor prior to COVID, and he wears his stars with pride, okay? This is Mr. Trevor Taylor, who is a student at Wilton Elementary. You may recognize him as the student that came to all your board meetings with his poster to try to save Wilton. Yep, he was that one. The school is a leader in me and a lighthouse school in which he is fully involved in. He chooses to practice a few of those habits this evening. To be proactive, think win-win, begin with the end in mind, and seek first to understand, then to be understood. Trevor? Where's your notebook? Oh, come on. Put it in here. Oh, there you go. Ready. All right,
With masks on, I feel disconnected, but it is then harder to speak. With mask off, I feel free because it is easier to talk and breathe. I feel like a mime in a box that's suffocating when I have a mask on. I enjoy seeing my friends' faces and not having to pull down my mask to eat.
This was, whenever I let him know that y'all had voted, I said, you know what they did today, right? He said, yeah. I said, well, what did they do? He said, they voted. I said, well, what did they vote on? He said, masks being optional. I said, guess what? He said, what? I said, they're going to be optional. He literally almost fell out of the bench. I was like, please don't pass out. All right, I will continue. The First Amendment is neither left-wing or right-wing. It can be used to push for social, political change, or to oppose change. The First Amendment is for everyone. Everyone. The First Amendment prevents governments from requiring you to say something you don't want to, or keep you from hearing or reading words of others. Even if you never speak yourself, you have a right to receive information. I know that we have many issues in our world, but I am most interested in the future of our world, and that starts with our students. I know this may seem belittle, but I have been made aware of the fact that our students are lacking proper nutrition at school. The high school offers only juice for breakfast, and only chocolate milk that is loaded with sugar for lunch. My son gave up chocolate milk for Lent. Now he has to take a water bottle because the only other alternative is to buy a slushie or pay for a Powerade. What about the children that don't have water bottles? What about the ones that are ADHD that can't keep up with their water bottles? That's not acceptable, okay? I would like to see water be an option because we all know water is what helps our body to function. I would like to also, I would like to see uniformity through all the schools when it comes to what is acceptable as far as social distancing and the ability to use lunchrooms. In the high school, they can have lunch, talk freely. Elementary school, not. High school, we can go into the school. Elementary school, we're slowly inching our way in. I just like for everything to be even across the board. I'm not sure what we may need to do, or you all may need to do as board members for this to be uniformity. We had spoken to you about this several months ago and asked for all of it to, there's so much to interpret. Nobody, well, this is this. And I just want something in concrete, something in writing just as I put this in. We need to know what is going on. And I believe all of you are our representatives. And we'd be so very, very grateful if y'all represented us the way we try to represent this county by being good students and good citizens. I'd like to close this in prayer, if nobody would mind. Dear gracious God, we give you thanks for our day. We know you bless us in so many different ways. You give us our health. You give us our freedom. You give us everything that we're so grateful for. And so we just ask that you watch over every one of us near and far, friend or foe. You know our countries are just in turmoil. And we ask that you protect each and every one of those and help us to be more like you and less like us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, citizens, for your comments this evening. Our next item of business, as board members, is our consent items. There appearing before you are the items that are brought to you for your approval tonight. We have approval of meeting minutes December 2nd, 2021. We have our current masking field trip approval and the Educational Partners International contract. What would be the pleasure of the board? Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Lebrecht. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Dr. McKnight. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed. All right, those motions pass. Board members, we're now going into our policy section for this evening. Our first item is 8.01, academic updates. Dr. McLean?
Yes, good evening. Tonight's first presentation, Dr. Winborn will be giving an academic update with his team. We have 3 items on the agenda: summer program information, our special programs including AIG, our EL population, and our EC population, and then followed by teacher vacancies and the challenges imposed. Dr. Winborn.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So tonight I bring to you several academic updates. Mr. Perry, if you would, please. As always, our mantra is focus. All right, we are attending to the same basics that we have started out with this school year, making sure that we are teaching to the standards, that we are monitoring instruction, we are inspecting what we expect, and we are working with our teachers to support them in how they teach. And of course, as you heard earlier tonight from Dr. McLean, we're laser focused on literacy in our district. Next slide, Mr. Perry. So tonight I'm going to bring 3 topics that the department has been working on over the past several weeks. The first was alluded to earlier. It's an overview of the various different summer programs that we'll be offering. I'm very excited about this. I think it's going to be a series of wonderful opportunities for all grade levels of students. I'm then going to cover very briefly some updates from each of our special program areas, and then talk about some of the challenges that we're still facing and some of the solutions that we're bringing to the table. So with that being said, I'd like to invite a couple of members of the Curriculum Instruction and Student Services team up to the podium. They're going to share some information about summer programs. So Dr. Whitaker, Ms. Hunt, and Ms. Salisbury.
Good evening. We would like to give you an update on our summer GCPS Summer Exploration Programs 2022. So if you take a look at the slide, there are several programs that we will have this summer, K-12 throughout the district. Elementary, we're going to have a reading camp that's going to target first, second, and third grade, and that's going to be by invitation only. June 21st through July 21st, and you can look on the slide for the locations. We're also going to provide Summer Quest again this summer, and that's going to be for K-5, where K-5 and 6-8, where students can receive additional support in reading and math. We're also going to provide support for 9-12, all Granville online courses, and credit recovery. There are going to be 2 sessions, a session 1, which is going to give students the opportunity to retake the EOC in English 2, Math 1, Math 3, and Biology, and session 2 for all other courses. And Summer Quest will be June 21st through July 21st for our K-8 students, June 6th through 26th for the EOC courses, and the second session for high school will be June 20th through 28th. We're also going to provide summer adventures for K-5 and 6-8, and that's going to be targeting our AIG students. Next slide, please. Just to give a bit of information about Reading Camp, this is a state legislated camp that we have to have every year, and it aligns with RTA, Read to Achieve, and we have to provide at least 72 hours of reading instruction for students. Grade 1 is optional this year, but we chose in Granville County to include grade 1 in our reading camp. We're going to use Scholastic Lit Camp, which is the curriculum that we used last year, and we chose it because it aligns to the science of reading, and it focuses on social emotional learning integrated into the lessons, as well as the codable text and personalized learning with iReady. Those are going to be our curriculum that we use for reading camps.
Summer Quest is also going to be 4 weeks, just like the reading camp. The difference between the reading camp and Summer Quest, the Summer Quest K-8 will also include some math exploration for those students. Unlike the reading camp, anyone can choose to attend the Summer Quest. So we're really excited about that. For the high school, we did decide to go ahead and do the EOC courses in a summer session 1, if you will, an early session, so that students have the opportunity for both a credit recovery and we get the benefit of the students taking the retest for those EOC courses before the end of June. All other high school Summer Quest courses will be done like we have in the past throughout the June and through the end of July, both as a credit recovery, or they can take it for advancement if students want to take a course to get ahead. Next slide.
Summer Adventures. This is one of our programs that we have in our after-school programs that we work with our community partnerships with, the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Office, as well as the Boys and Girls Club. And we will continue to work with them during the summer by our grant, which will be a 6-week program for our students starting on June the 20th. And during this program, we invite our students to come, and this program is set aside to make sure that students are doing hands-on activities. It's a lot of STEM-based activities activities, team building. They use their critical thinking skills. We also discuss entrepreneurship skills. So we have these sites that are done at our elementary schools, Buckner STEM Elementary and West Oxford Elementary, and we also use a middle school, Northern Granville Middle School. So this is for all K-8 students that can participate in this program. Next slide. So on the next slide, you will see the Summer Career Accelerator, which will be for our 8th and 9th grades and 10th graders. Our 8th graders will go June the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and our 9th and 10th graders will go July the 12th, 13th, and 14th. Summer Bridge will be also face-to-face, and this is for our pre-K students that are going into kindergarten, 5th grade students that are going into middle school, and 8th grade students that are going into high school, which will be July the 25th through August the 4th. And Summer Melt is for our graduates class of 2022, bridge to post-secondary. This will be done in June, July, and August. Next slide.
We are really excited about the Summer Career Accelerator program. This is the first time that we will be able to offer this program. It will be at each of the 3 high schools. One of the weeks, our rising incoming 9th graders will spend 3 days. One day they will explore the CTE programs at their new high school they're going to go to. One day, they will explore business and industry in our community. They will learn about jobs that are available. And a 3rd day, they will visit our Vance Granville Community College. Just like our friend from Vance Granville talked about earlier this evening, our students are going to learn about programs that Vance Granville has where you earn a certificate or credential from Vance Granville, that you can graduate from high school and go take an 8-week program, get a certification, and come out and get a job making some really good money and not have any college debt. So we want 9th graders to hear about that and learn about that this summer before they ever even start high school. And then we also want our rising 10th and 11th graders to have that same experience. 3 different days. And we're excited that we're going to be able to offer this at all 3 of our comprehensive high schools.
Summer Bridge. So this year we are excited to offer our students a high-quality transition program. As stated earlier, all of our upcoming kindergarten students from pre-K will be invited, all of our 5th to 6th grade students for all of our middle schools, and all of our 8th and 9th grade students for high school. This year, we have to require a minimum of 50 hours of programming, no less than 25, which will be dedicated to academic learning, acceleration, grade level content. And it is expected that this intensive instruction will be led by highly effective teachers in small group settings. So we are very excited to offer this opportunity for our students as they will be able to learn about their new schools that they will be participating in the upcoming year, meet their staff, meet new friends that they will make, but to also be able to go to the school, to take tours of the school. We have field trips that we are planning for the students. So we want to make this a fun and exciting time as they're learning about their new school, but are also getting the 50 hours of the requirement of the 25 hours for the academic learning and making it so that it is exciting and fun for our students.
Summer Melt. We've wanted to do this for a long time, and we finally have the funding that we are going to be able to give our graduating seniors some support in June, July, and August. We have a lot of students right now, seniors, who say, I don't know what I'm going to do. They haven't completed FAFSA yet because they say, I don't need to complete FAFSA. I'm not going anywhere. But they might end up going somewhere, that they are going to need the FAFSA. And they might not come to that realization until June 20th. Well, we are going to have the staff in place this summer to follow through with those graduated students, check in weekly with them, and help them complete a FAFSA. When they get that email from their four-year college saying, you need to complete your residency form, and they don't know what that means, they are going to be able to check in with their summer melt counselor and get some help completing that residency form. When they come to that, their mom says, you're not going to lay on my couch for the rest of your life. You need to go find a job. That summer mental counselor is going to be there to help them go find NC Works and find a job. So we're really, really excited about this. And fingers crossed, we might be able to continue with our college advisors that we have right now. We might be able to continue with those college advisors, extend their employment June, July, and August. So we're really excited about summer melt. Summer exploration, just a few last pieces. We are going to be able to provide transportation this summer for our students who need transportation to be able to come participate in these programs. So we are really, really excited about that. It will be first come, first serve, and limited space. So in the past, we've kind of said, okay, we're going to extend the sign-up form, and we're going to extend the sign-up form. We're going to extend it. This year, we're not going to be able to do that because we do want to provide the transportation. So we're going to have a cutoff time. So look for that. We will be providing lunch and breakfast. We're going to have a staff application process, and look for that student enrollment form to come out next Monday, March the 14th for all our programs except for the bridge and the careers. So we're really excited about that. Are there any questions?
Board members, thank you. And again, now's a fine time to pause if you do have any questions about these specific programs. I know it's a lot to absorb. Personally, I'm very, very proud of this. As Dr. McLean has said, every minute counts. We are literally squeezing every drop of opportunity out of this summer. There is going to be something for just about everyone, and I believe these sessions and programs are going to make a big difference for the children, especially given what they've been through. So we're excited about it. Next slide, Mr. Perry. I'm going to just briefly go through a couple of our special program updates, and I have some additional staff here that are just going to share brief comments. First, about our Exceptional Children's Program. Unfortunately, as you know, we received a resignation from our director recently. And we'll be bringing additional updates with staffing about that to you later. But it's time for headcount, and our staff is working on that. That is the formal identification process for all of those students and the reporting of them. Many people have asked recently, this came up in one of the budget sessions with the county commissioners and the Board of Education, your joint Budget 101, I think it was called. Our EC program is funded at 12.75% of our ADM. Last school year, approximately 16% of our students did have an IEP. So we are currently serving many more students than for which we are receiving funding for at the state level. And we do continue to experience teacher vacancies acutely in this area. It's particularly difficult, as you've seen Mr. Perry reporting each month, with vacancies trying to fill these positions. But we've got an excellent team, very small but hardworking team of EC professionals that are moving this program forward and making sure that we're in compliance. Next slide, Mr. Perry. ESL, I have with me this evening. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please do, absolutely.
Mr. Chair, would you go back and just kind of go through The 12.75% is of the ADM. So if we've got, explain that, because I never have understood.
Right. So, and I may need to get corrected on this, but it's my general understanding that we receive a certain number of per pupil that's in the program. Ms. Dubison, I see you nodding.
So you receive, in addition to the state funds that you receive for all students, you get additional funds for students with disabilities. However, those funds are capped at a certain number of students with disabilities. The chair just asked me, is this typical for you to have many more students with disabilities than the cap? And the answer is yes, it's very typical. And something that you would see across the state. So.
Oh, I have read some information last year just looking at it because I was very interested in it too. This is not uncommon for rural counties. Generally have a higher percentage, and about 50% of the counties in North Carolina are in the same boat. The last legislation did up the percentage slightly, but it's not a lot, just 1/4 or 2/4%. But that's been a problem for years.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I've not seen any indications that you are over-identifying students, but rather that this is just the population here and in many other places.
So the question is this: do we serve all the children? We have to, I know that. Where do we get the money to serve kids that the state doesn't provide the money?
Yeah, that's a complicated question because in reality, EC services aren't provided sort of on a per pupil basis. You know, you have a program that serves 30 students, and you have a speech therapist that serves X number of students, and so the answer is it's from a variety of sources, but certainly some local funds will come into play.
Good questions. Any other questions related to ECP? Dr. Wimble?
Thank you, Ms. Dubison. I appreciate that. Our next is about English as a second language. This is a program that serves students who come to our schools whose primary language is not English. The vast majority of these students are Spanish speaking. Many of them come from Mexico, Central America, South America, parts of the Caribbean. We do have a small but growing population of students that speak Arabic. With me tonight is Miss Ivelisse Marin. She is an employee that's been with us for many, many years, a very talented and dedicated bilingual teacher. Ms. Marin, join me up here. She is just finishing up the annual testing cycle of these students. And Ms. Marin, not to put you on the spot, but what's our head count approximately right now?
Right now we have, well, as of yesterday, we have 581.
581 that are identified as limited English proficient or English learners. And this head count continues to increase, and we've seen an influx lately with newcomers as well, students that speak very little English, mostly from Honduras, Guatemala, Salvador. So a little bit of change in the demographics. We're also struggling in this regard to find qualified teachers, especially those that are bilingual, like Ms. Marin, who, I mean, it just makes a tremendous difference to have someone like her on our staff. So I want to thank you, Ms. Marin, for all that you do. Really appreciate it. And then last but not least, AIG updates. And we have with us this evening Ms. Becky Bishop, our new AIG coordinator. And I'm going to let her just give a few updates about the tremendous work that she's done in a very short time with AIG. Ms. Bishop.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here sharing this update with you tonight. I think one of the biggest things that I'm excited about is getting the ball rolling and just the passion for the work that I have. And I have been able to put together an awesome team. I'm so excited about our advisory board. We have 25 members right now, and they range from parents to community members to staff and teachers and AIG teachers. And so we have had 2 meetings thus far, and we have been able to do our self-assessment on our current plan. as well as begin to dig through some data and look to set some specific goals, as we are currently in our new plan cycle, which begins this year. So we are working towards submitting our 2022-2025 AIG plan to the Department of Public Instruction this January. We currently have 2 specialist vacancies that we are working to address, and one of my long-term goals with that, actually short-term, long-term, get something rolling in the fall where we can possibly provide a cohort for teachers to become AIG certified, to build capacities within our buildings outside of the specialist role, but actually having an AIG certified teacher in that school building day in, day out, boots on the ground, to provide the differentiated instruction that our AIG students need. As I said, we are working on presenting our new plan. We will be sharing that with you all in the near future to have that approved by you. But we are very excited to be focusing on 3. We know the need is huge and all of the standards are important, but we have narrowed our focus down to 3 goals, or 3 focus areas as we move forward. And one of them is on Standard 2, which is about providing services to our kids and making sure that we have continuity within our entire school system. We have Standard 3, which is on differentiation, and Standard 6 on program accountability. So we are really hard at work there, and our next meeting will actually be March 24th. We do them virtually, so if you are interested in joining us, we'd love to have any of you to be a part of that work as well. I am working with the lovely team that was up here a few minutes ago around summer programs, and we are going to be targeting our AIG students to provide them that opportunities to be a part of that summer adventure program that is going to be hands-on and provide areas for them to extend this summer in the areas of the 4 Cs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Next slide, Mr. Perry. So, you may have heard brought up several times the staffing issues, and it is a real concern, but it's not a concern that's unique to Granville County Public Schools. This is something, the great resignation that's happening across the country and across the state for sure. So this is an issue. It is a challenge we face. We've got, not just in our special areas, but our core teacher vacancies. And these are not, newly created positions. These are our core vacancies. Next slide, Mr. Perry. But the good news is that we've got some things we're doing about this. Our HR team has done some amazing work around recruiting and retention. You'll hear a little bit more about that later tonight. Of course, from the Central Services and Curriculum and Instruction and Student Services team, we're trying very hard to provide specific, concrete support for our teachers so that they can teach to the standards and focus on their quality of their teaching. We've been offering flex courses, paying teachers extra to teach during their planning periods to cover vacancies. We've got real-time virtual instruction occurring in several of our high schools. With vacancies there, we've contracted out with a third party. We provide online instruction and tutoring. Tutoring is a big push this year. We've got a couple of Saturday boot camp sessions that are coming up. All of our schools right now are promoting after-school and before-school tutoring district-wide. That's going very well. And we got a lot of professional development. This Thursday is an early release for our staff, and this is an opportunity for them to choose and select from a menu of options. So they kind of get to target, our educators get to target areas that they want to work on. So I'm really proud of the work that our teachers are doing. I commend them. I know that it's difficult, but they're doing a tremendous job. So with that, I'll conclude and take any questions you may have.
Okay. Board members, any questions for our academic team?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to recommend that as you plan maybe down the road in terms of workshops and that kind of thing, work sessions, this whole thing on special education is something that is not understood by many of us, and yet we need to understand what these figures mean, where our money is coming from to pay for them, the kind of things that, frankly, the calls I get more than anything else are related to a child with some special need, not being served, not being served correctly. You get my point. So, I mean, I think it would be good for all of us just to take an hour or two slowly, and just ask the questions that I think all of us would like to know or should know in our role as a board member.
Absolutely. I've made a note. Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So I guess I'm curious because we're talking about the 12.75%, right? That's the funding that we're getting for that. So my question is does that 12.75, is that just for our school district, or is that included in like the pass-through that goes to other charter schools? Like,
So that would be for the children that are enrolled in our school district.
It's just us.
Because that depends on the identification of those students within our schools.
so then my question then is, so like let's say one charter school needs no CPE services, right? Or whatever the three letters are.
The IEP.
IEP, whatever the three letters are.
Individualized education plan, yeah.
So, and then like another charter school only has like one student that needs IEP services. So did they get 12.75% from the state for their
I don't think so. I think that the EC funding is based on their head count, and each year the school systems have to submit their EC head count, their number of kids with IEPs. So I don't think that you get funded at 12.75% if you only have 5%. It's just that you can't get funded at more than.
Okay, thank you.
But the one thing that is interesting is if a charter school or any school for that matter, say has 6% of their population identified in that head count, they're actually getting full funding for their students each.
Right.
Whereas if you exceed, you're not getting that full funding per child.
Yes, that is correct.
Does the, oh, wait.
And perhaps further to the point,
Does the level of
Disabled.
disabled, I mean, does that if a kid who is is identified as having LD, does that same kind of money go to a kid who has multiple disabilities?
This is starting to get a little more complicated than I'm qualified to answer. I will say that there are special funds for unusually high needs students. Like if you have a student who ends up needing residential placement, there are some special funds available for that, but beyond that, but that's something separate that you have to apply for.
So these will all be good questions for a work session.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I'd be happy to make that happen.
Thank you, Dr. Winborn.
Thank you.
All right, board members, our next item is our 22-23 calendar. I believe Mr. Graham is coming to present those options from the committee that did its work.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Graham is going to present 8.02 and 8.03. We need your action on both of those. He will be presenting our traditional and early college calendars at this time. So we'll have 8.02 and 8.03.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and board members. It's my pleasure to speak with you on calendars. I'm happy to say that this is not a lot to absorb, as the last presentation was. Next slide, Stan. I want to begin by saying that the state requirements come to us from North Carolina Session Law 2020-3, additionally Senate Bill 704. And I just wanted, there's a couple of slides here that just list some of those restrictions that are placed on us when we work on our calendar. So, for example, start date no earlier than the Monday closest to August 26th, and an end date no later than Friday closest to June 11th. Unless a weather-related calendar waiver has been approved, year-round school, charter schools, or cooperative innovation high school, if a waiver is approved, the start date can be no earlier than Monday closest to August 19th. And I just told you you didn't have a lot to absorb, but that's just an example. All schools within the district must be closed all day for purposes of determining eligibility for a weather-related waiver. The calendar must cover at least 9 calendar months. It must have a minimum of 185 days or 1,025 hours of instruction. That's a key point. We look at the hours that we have, tally those up, and we have an excess of that, which allows us, when we have those times of inclement weather, to not have to make that up to a certain number of days. So we pay close attention to the hours that we spend. The calendar must have 9 teacher work days. Local boards shall designate 2 work days on which local teachers can take vacation leave. Must have a minimum of 10 annual vacation leave days. And it's good to know that Veterans Day shall be a holiday. It doesn't mention Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. It mentions Veterans Day. And we cannot have school on a Sunday. So I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, pretty obvious. Next, please. Added to this was the condition in our district. We decided that our first semester will end prior to the winter break.
Yes.
So I've shared with you the constraints under which the committee had to work.
We made it really easy for you, right?
To create a calendar that would work, okay? And the reason that I spent a little bit of time going over those details is that's something that we get questions about. You know, the question will come up, why is it that we get out when we do, or we start when we do? We really don't have any flexibility. That's law that's given to us. So within those constraints, Dr. McLean wanted there to be significant representation on this committee, and it included a cross-section of people from a variety of different places, some of them in the district, some of them, some parents, some outside. The committee included a district data manager, because she knows when all the quarters have to end and when report cards go out, et cetera. A representative from finance and payroll, the district coordinator of testing and accountability, our teacher of the year, the principal of the year, a parent, a board member, assistant principal, 4 district office people, and Jackie Harris, our beloved principal of Granville Early College, which has its own calendar. So Jackie is always on the committee, unfortunately for her. The committee met to develop 2 calendars. Dr. McLean felt strongly that choice be made available and for the community to have an opportunity to weigh in. So to that end, the committee did develop those 2 calendars, and a survey was sent out to the community. The results that we got back, parents by a margin of 2-1 and teachers by a margin of 4-1 voted for option 1 that was presented to them, which you have given to you in your packet. You see that option 1. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at my notes. So we have for you 2 calendars. We have the option 1 that was developed by that committee, and we have the calendar that was developed by the early college. Now, the early college has the same constraints that we do. However, they have the additional constraints of having to fit in with Vance Granville Community College. So they have virtually 0 flexibility. So they, Ms. Harris and her staff works together with Vance Granville to come up with a calendar that works. So, for example, they are now currently on spring break because that's when Vance Granville is. So, you are presented with these 2 calendars, and we are asking the board to approve the 2 calendars for 2022 and 23 as presented this evening. The traditional as well as the early college. Oh, also, I want to add one last thing. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Please note that we have updated the calendar from what was in the original board docs last week. It was necessary to reflect a modification that we received on Friday.
Yes.
It's an early release, elementary only. This is the one that you're looking at now. Early release, elementary only on April 19th, 2023, to allow for training in literacy. So that was an addition that wasn't in the documents that you received last week, and that's the reason. So again, we're asking the board to approve the calendars as presented for 2022 and 23.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Will you have Dr. Winborn address that early release piece?
Sure.
For me, please. That required training is state mandated, and I'd just
Yes, ma'am.
like to go on record with the type of training that is, please, Dr. Winborn.
Yes, thank you, Dr. McLean. Board members, earlier this academic year, we provided some updates with you about the science of reading professional development that is required by the state. We are in cohort 3, and so our staff will be undertaking this training starting next academic year. It's about 120 hours of training for elementary teachers. And the team has worked really hard to try and provide these training sessions in the constraints of our own calendar. And so I'm really proud to say that we're not having sessions on Saturdays. We're not having them on nights. We're going to do it within the calendar that we've got. And we just needed to make this one small change because of the availability of the trainers. So certainly please show your love and support of our our elementary educators as they undertake this training next year, which I think will be excellent, but it's a lot for them to accomplish. Yes,
Dr.
ma'am.
Winborn, are you saying that's 120 hours for
Approximately.
each teacher?
Over the course of the training.
Over
yes,
the
ma'am.
course, okay. Is that for the whole year?
Yes, it will span next year and into the first part of the summer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we're in cohort 3, so there are 2 other groups of districts that have already begun the process.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chair, we turn it back over to you.
All right, board members, do you have any questions concerning the 2 calendars that are brought before you tonight? Our traditional option 1 calendar, as well as the Granville Early College High School calendar.
Mr. Chair, can we do those together, or do you want to do them separately?
That's totally up to you. If you
I
want to
make a
that
motion to approve both calendars as presented.
Thank you.
I second.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Houlihan, a second by Ms. Anderson. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, one quick question. Just looking over the GCPS, the summer program calendar, the 2022, and that looks like, I'm assuming the blue is the days that are in school, correct? Is that was from the summer program calendar?
Yes, ma'am.
So August 4th is the last day of class for the summer bridge stuff? And then I'm just looking at the 2022, 2023 calendar school year, and it's looking like on the Granville Early College, quarter 1 starts on August 4th. I just was curious. I just want to make sure there wasn't going to be some kind of overlap there.
Yeah, I don't believe there will be any impact for those students at early college.
Okay, just wanted to check. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. So board members, we have a motion on the floor to approve both calendars that have been presented to you tonight. The option 1, 2022-23 traditional school calendar, as well as the 22-23 Granville Early College calendar. And any further discussion? All right, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Graham.
Thank you all.
I have an additional item.
Okay.
The next.
Okay.
On a separate item, last February 12th, you approved an early release day on March 18th. And if you look at the Granville Early College calendar for this year, you would see that they are just returning from spring break. So therefore, for them, March 18th seems like not a very good time for them to have that early release day for staff to work on, their needs. So I'm asking for a change that be, that we look at April 14th to be early release for the same purposes that we voted on February 12th.
Okay, so March 18th to April 14th?
March 18th for traditional and
Correct.
April 14th.
April 14th
for Granville Early College.
I got you.
We just wanted to make that clarification.
All right, so board members, this comes to you as an action item as well. What would be the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Peace. Do we have a second? A second by Dr. McKnight. Any further discussion? All right. So this motion is to change for traditional to March 18th, on Granville Early College, April 14th. If you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. All right. That motion carries as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Dr. McLean, I believe our next item is 8.04, School Clubs and Activities Update.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We thought we'd share some pretty exciting news. This won't take very long, but it is some good information about what is happening with our students building graduate profiles. And it starts as early as elementary schools. So we have Ms. Shelby Hunt, Ms. Angie Salisbury sharing with you what's happening with clubs and activities. Dr. Felicia Whitaker is going to join them as well. Ladies, turn it over to you.
Good evening again. So I have a question for you. Chairman Richardson, are you interested in learning about chess clubs?
Actually, yes.
Great.
Because I'm not very good at it.
That's a setup.
Mrs. Anderson, would you be interested in learning about sewing?
For sure.
No. Mr. Peace, would you be interested in learning more about sports?
Of course.
Miss Williams, would you be interested in learning about gardening?
Uh-oh.
Yes, because I have a black thumb and not a green thumb. I kill plants.
Dr. McKnight, would you be interested in learning more about the robotics club?
Absolutely.
Miss LeBrecq, would you be interested in learning about a Spanish club?
Oh, definitely.
Dr. Houlihan, would you be interested in learning about our...
Oh, yes, I can't wait. I just can't wait.
Thank you, Dr. Houlihan.
Sorry about that, I couldn't help.
I was going to say coding club. So we just have many clubs that are available for our students that we are starting, as Dr. McLean said, at our elementary schools. And we would just like to share a few of the clubs with you. So on the slides, you can see for our elementary clubs, we have some pictures. And these are just a few of the clubs that we are sharing from each one of our school levels. So we have art, coding, cooking, dance, drama, gardening, meditation, music, puzzle, robotics, science, sports, and STEM. Next slide. For our middle schools, we have a few as well of our different clubs. Also, I would like to say that 100% of our students have had the opportunity to participate in clubs at least 4 times during the fall semester and once during the spring semester. Almost over half of our high school students are actively involved in at least one club or extracurricular activity, which includes internship, apprenticeship, marching band, and athletics. Next slide. And for our high school clubs, we have a few examples as well. There are many more clubs with all of our schools, but we also track our clubs so that we can make sure that our students are participating in the clubs, because we give the students an opportunity to pick the club that they would like to learn about the most. And so this will help them with their learning and give them some enrichment opportunities, as well as Dr. McLean has said that she is very committed to growing our graduate student profiles.
Isn't it nice getting student information? I'm really excited about what our students are doing academically, but as well as on the social front, because oftentimes it's those things that keeps students in schools. So we want to continue growing in this area. So go on, ladies.
So when do I come to chess club?
I'll get back with you, sign you up. So for our morning news show, this is new for this year. We have each of our schools that are participating in our news shows. So we have our students that are creating and presenting the information to the students and the staff at each of the schools. These are just a few examples of what our students are doing. Due to the sake of time, we are going to show you 2 of our schools with a 30-second video from each one of their news shows.
Hi, I'm Lilo, and I'm a baby. Hi, I'm Ariana Moore.
You the breaking news you deserve.
All around the world. To the beach, y'all. Thank you for watching the Hornets Nest News.
And that was G.C. Hawley, and then we will also share West Oxford.
Good morning, beautiful people. It is a great day to be at West Oxford Out. Lunch for the day is hot ham
get
and
that
cheese
turned
on
up?
a bun, broccoli and cheese, black-eyed peas, and a peach cup. Now for the weather. Today, high 69. Tuesday, low 35. Now for the joke today. Knock knock. Who's there? None. None who? None of your business.
So these just are 2 quick examples of our news shows, which go more than the 30 seconds that you have seen. So please take time when you have a chance to look on our board docs, and you can be able to review the rest of the presentations from the other schools.
All of our schools have morning news shows. It's really neat to see the children showcase their schools. Some do it every week, some do it every 2 weeks, but the children have really gotten infused in showcasing their schools. We're really excited about it this year.
Do you have any questions?
Great job. Thank you so much, ladies.
Dr. Houlihan, I have a club for you. The Model United Nations Club.
Hey.
I believe that would be right up my alley.
Thank you all so much.
Sometime down the road.
All right, board members, our next item is 8.05, Summer Program Remediation, Second Testing Opportunities. Dr. McLean?
Thank you for that. Dr. Winborn, we have Ms. Amy Rice with us, and I'm certain this is a figment of my imagination tonight. Okay, all right. Ms. Rice, that's an inside joke.
Yes, it is. Good evening, board members. This is a presentation for our summer second chance testing. So as you know, at the end of the year in May and going into early June, we will have our EOG and EOC testing. And so the state gives us an opportunity to offer our students a second chance to test. And there are only certain conditions that students have this opportunity. And so things you need to know about the readministration of these scores, they are not included in our growth for our students, for our schools, or for our teachers' accountability growth. They are, however, included in proficiency calculations. And those scores must be uploaded for them to count for our proficiency by July the 6th, because they are for this school year. So in order to retest, students must participate in a remediation program before they can have the test readministered to them. And it must also occur after students are out of school. So there's a very tight frame, and you heard that we have all of these great programs for our students this summer. The problem is we want our students to have every drop of time that they can have this summer. So we can't test them at the end for those. That would go past that July 6th date. So for our K-8 students, it's just there's not an opportunity to test them after all of that extensive remediation. So that is still just going to be an opportunity for them to get every chance of remediation and prep and bridging and quest and all those great things that they can have, just for school to be fun and they can just learn for the sake of learning and to catch up. But for the second chance testing, it will be just a brief chance of remediation. And sometimes for these students, it's just honestly, the nerves are out of their, they just get the nerves out. It's just a different test. Sometimes Form B is just different than Form A, and they actually just do better. So it will be right after school is out for those students in our 3rd through 8th grade when they're having that. They'll start remediation as soon as they get their scores back in school. They'll still have field day, they'll still have their class parties, they'll still get to go to awards assemblies, but during that time our schools will set up some remediation time. They'll also have a remediation day or two during the work days, and then they'll start their retesting on the rest of those teacher work days. And then for our high schools, what also allows students to retest is we will do something a bit different for our students in high school. Students can do just like the 3rd through 8th grade students if they pass the class, and they didn't pass the EOG and they want to see, I had a bad day. And I want to see if just taking a different test or trying again, if I can just pass that test. And so they can come in and remediate and take a different test. But if a student did not pass the class and was close to passing, and they want to get what we call credit recovery. You heard Mrs. Salisbury speak to that. Credit recovery means that a teacher can say, this student just had gaps in particular units. They may have had to be quarantined for 2 weeks. They may have tested positive, and so they missed a unit or two. And when you miss 2 weeks in high school, when you're on a semester block, that's a unit. And so they may have just been behind because of 1 unit. So a classroom teacher can say, this student just needs to really go back and make up this unit, retest on that. And so that's what's called credit recovery. And so those students can then just focus on the units that they need to make up, take the unit assessment for that, and then when they complete those units, they then have to retake the EOC if they did not have a passing EOC score as well. So if you did not pass the class and you also did not have a passing EOC score, you must retake the EOC. That is what is required by the state. So we have a great dynamic this summer in that we will be able to have some face-to-face instruction for those students because they don't always do well online, as we have learned. And so during those that first week out of school, when we have teacher work days, they will get face-to-face instruction. Then because our teachers need a break and our students might need a break, they'll still get some time to work on them at home if they need to, and then we'll have another week in late June where they'll get to come back in for more face-to-face instruction for those teachers to focus with them on those units that they need help in before they will get to take that EOC in order to earn credit recovery for that EOC course. And then that last Monday in June, they'll get to take the EOC. So those are the ways that our students will get to have their second chance testing. The third way that students can retake a test, an EOC, you'll see, and I don't have it in green there, is students can repeat a course for credit for EOC only. This is not an EOG, this is just high school. And when they repeat the whole course, it will suppress the grade. We did this in college. My son will have to do this. I'll just go ahead and tell you. My son will be repeating a course in college. So he can suppress that grade. He made a C-. He will not have that C- in his stats class. So he'll be retaking that class, and if he retakes that class, it will suppress the grade. So in high school, if they retake the whole class, they will get to suppress that grade. And that way, it can raise their GPA. When they take it for credit recovery, they do not suppress the grade. So their GPA stays the same, but they get a P. They get the credit for the class, but their GPA stays the same. We just know that no student's going to be able to take a whole course in 3 weeks in June. So that's why it's not in green. That's not an opportunity for our high school students to take a whole course in June. That is what they will get the rest of the summer to do. And those scores will just have to go on the next year's grades. Any questions? Because you have to vote on our plan if you approve. So any questions?
All right. What would be the pleasure of the board? This does come to you as an action item tonight.
Whatever Amy tells us to do.
Sir?
No, just, whatever she tells us to do.
Say that.
And board members, you have been able to see the actual schedules in board docs as well.
I really like that, the way that it's laid out, and it's, really for the benefit of the students and everything, the process that she laid out there, and I would make a motion that we allow this process to occur as presented.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Anderson to approve the plan as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Williams. Any further discussion, questions, comments? I think this will be a good opportunity for our students.
Yes.
It is. It is.
All right. Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Rice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board members, our next item is 8.06. This is the North Carolina School Board Association policy contract. If you remember correctly, at our last board meeting, you did vote to approve this contract as a board. We have been made aware of some policy changes within the School Board Association that necessitates this to be brought back to you, and I'd like to give the attorney an opportunity to speak to that.
Sure. Board members, in December, a new statute was passed statewide that says that a board member who's on the board of a nonprofit can't vote on a contract with that nonprofit. And it didn't even occur to us, nor to the School Board Association, that since Mr. Peace is still on their board as a former president, you're on, I think you stay on for life, don't you?
As long as I'm on this board.
Right.
That won't be for life.
Okay. That he needs to not vote. And so we need to readdress the contract with Mr. Peace abstaining.
Okay, so board members, this does come back to you for action. Again, this contract is for the policy service that we outlined, the project that would go through reviewing our policies and making sure that they're in line with what the board has done, what has been voted upon, and that they are in order. So at this point, what would be the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Dr. McKnight to approve the policy as presented, or policy contract as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, do I officially abstain from
Yes,
this
sir.
voting?
Yes,
Well, I'm
sir.
doing that at this point.
All right, and just for the record, Ms. LeBrecq has stepped out of the room. So board members, this is ready for you to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries 5-0 with one abstaining and one absent. All right. Next comes to you 8.07, North Carolina School Board Association Policy Update. If you remember correctly, we had a list of fall policies that were brought to you months and months ago. And we had one last month that needed some more direction for you. So at this time, Dr. McClain.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Our team reviewed the options you have and what you have in front of you is just the recommendation noting that option 1 is your most restrictive, and it gets least restrictive as you move towards option 4. So we did not bring a, here is the one we think you ought to do, but more or less recommending that you decide whether you want to be most restrictive with this policy, looking at option 1, or head toward being more liberal in your thinking with this. What you have right now is probably more in the area of option 3.
Okay. Attorney Dubison, would you like to add anything to that?
No, this is for first reading, right?
So it was brought during first reading. During second reading, it was kind of discovered that the board didn't really know what direction it wanted to
Right.
take.
Okay.
And so
Right.
it pulled it last time.
So I agree with selecting option 3, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that, and would just recommend that it at least come back for information once the revisions have been made so that the board can see the final.
Okay. All right, so you've heard the information from the staff as well as the attorney. What would be the pleasure of the board? So essentially what it looks like, you would choose option 1, 2, 3, or 4. That would be inserted into the policy. We would bring it back to you next month for the final read through it, and then you could vote on it.
Motion to approve option 3.
Okay. We have a motion by Dr. McKnight to approve option 3 into the first reading. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Dr. Houlihan. Are there questions? All right, seeing none. If you're, again, what you're voting on is to insert option 3 into this policy. This would serve as the first read. That would be done. It would be brought back to you at a later board meeting for you to have the second read of this policy with option 3 language. If you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If you oppose? All right, the motion carries for that to be a first read. This will be brought back to you probably in April. All right. Now we're at 8.08, Dr. McLean for our pandemic action report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, at the request of our board, we will have this on the agenda tonight, and Mrs. Lauren Curtis will take over at this time. Thank you, Ms. Curtis.
Good evening, board members. Good to see you again.
Sorry, give me 1 minute. I need to let the others join into the meeting.
They're already in, you just need to join.
Can I mute? Muted and my speaker's off.
Did your attachment come up?
Yeah.
All right, well, it's good to see everyone again this evening. We've got some updates to share with you tonight. First, again, as you'll recall, at your last meeting, you voted to make mask optional for all students and staff in our facilities. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services does continue to recommend wearing a mask if you're at high risk for a severe illness, you're unvaccinated or not up to date on your vaccines, you want an added layer of protection, or you're in a high-risk setting. Next slide. We're still requiring physical distancing within our buildings. That's 3 feet for students and 6 feet for adults at all times, indoors and outdoors. Next. Attorney Dubison, do you have any legal updates for us this evening?
No, I note that a new toolkit was released this afternoon.
Yes.
Late this afternoon. There's nothing of surprise in there. It's changes that we knew were coming from the governor's announcement a couple of weeks ago, recommending voluntary masking except after a positive, required masking after a positive test or symptoms.
Thank you. So we'll take a look now at our readiness indicators. We're still up to date on our stock of PPE, and are still following our facility modifications. We're still having some staffing challenges, although they are certainly much less than we were experiencing just a few weeks ago. The numbers have gone down quite a bit. We are still, as always, on the hunt for substitutes that would like to join our team. So we're excited when we see those applications rolling in. Next slide. And at this time, we will welcome our partners from Granville Vance Public Health, Lisa Harrison, our Granville Vance Public Health Director, and Dr. Shauna Guthrie, our Medical Director.
Hi, it's nice to be with you again. And Lauren, do you have the slides up there, or do I need to share mine?
We have them ready for you, so you are all set.
Excellent. Well, I'll start, and I can't see them from where I am, so I don't know if there's a better way to do that, or if I just start talking through them and we'll match up slides. How about that?
Okay.
So yeah, this is your regular data update. So I'll start with what we're used to seeing in our regular 5 bullets that we have been presenting at every meeting about cases and about hospitalization, about the variant, reminders otherwise. So Granville County has had over 14,000 cases over time of COVID-19 and 111 deaths during the course of the pandemic. We have just reached the 2-year mark of the time when North Carolina saw its first case of COVID-19 on March 3rd, 2020. In the last 2 weeks, there have been 126 reported cases of COVID-19 in Granville County. So although we are seeing adjustments in the North Carolina Safe Schools Toolkit, and we are making adjustments across the state and in our 2 counties as well, important reminder that we still are having cases and we still have people in the hospital, and the pandemic has not reached its end quite yet. So across our state, we have over 1,000 people currently hospitalized, and today alone, 21% of those, or 235 individuals, are hospitalized in the ICU. People are still getting serious COVID. 99% of all of those typed across the state of North Carolina have Omicron, and the largest majority of those hospitalized with COVID-19 are currently unvaccinated. Vaccines are safe, are effective, and remain the main way we want to keep people out of the hospital. Granville County has a 3.7% test positivity rate over the last 14 days, and Vance County has 4.2% statewide. North Carolina is seeing a 3.9%. So the next slide shows you some new colors with our counties. This is one of the new maps that was released just last week from CDC to indicate high, medium, and low community transmission levels. And as you can see, we are all doing a happy dance that in Granville and in Vance counties, we are at a medium transmission level according to the mask guidance. And the way this is calculated, low, medium, and high, is to look at these indicators. So we look at the new COVID-19 cases per 100,000 people over the past 7 days. If they are fewer than 200, then we make sure that we look at one series of indicators, and if they're 200 or more over the last 7 days, we look at a different set of indicators. And so we look at COVID-19 admissions per 100,000 population and percent staffed inpatient beds occupied by COVID-19 patients, and make sure that we look at the different levels that you can see here. So if we have fewer than 200 people per 100,000 of new COVID-19 cases in the last week, and we're in the low category, that means we have fewer than 10 new COVID-19 admissions and fewer than 10 staffed inpatient beds occupied by COVID-19 patients. Then you see the delineation for medium is in a range from 10 to 20 in the first category, and 10 to 15 in the inpatient beds. And then the high is over 20 new admissions in the hospital per 100,000 over the last week. And then the patient-staffed inpatient beds occupied by those with COVID-19 have to be less than or equal to 15 in order to get to the high status. So we are categorized as that medium status, and we continue to see our numbers of cases go down and our hospitalizations go down. In fact, the next slide shows you the downward trend, and it looks like a nice slope, and we are certainly grateful to see that trend going down. And statewide, 2% of COVID-19 hospitalized patients are in the pediatric category. So it's important to note that even though we've got lower case numbers and lower numbers of people in the hospital, we still are seeing some pediatric cases, and some pediatric cases are still having to receive some serious care. So we just have to make sure that we're paying attention to all of these data. The vaccine uptake in Granville County, overall, we have about 65% of the population who are up to date on vaccinations with first and second doses, and variations of those will be eligible for boosters over time. We have in the age group of 5 to 11-year-olds, the percent of the population with 2 doses is right under 20%. And for those between 12 and 17, we have 42% of those who have had 2 doses. So a little higher in our older age group than our younger age group. But we still have a ways to go, and want to make sure that you're reminded in the next slide with the kiddos down there giving you both high fives and without their masks on are I'm presuming vaccinated. So we just want to remind you that vaccines continue to be monitored very closely and have the most intensive safety monitoring in U.S. history. Both the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics have stated such. Vaccines are available for all eligible ages each day in both locations of the health department in Henderson and in Oxford. And COVID-19 vaccines have to reach the same rigorous safety standards as any other vaccine. It's taking a little longer, in fact, to get to those younger age groups under age 5, because we're still looking at the data on how effective the dose amounts are going to be for that younger age group. So, we want to make sure people are looking at the right information and get trusted information from trusted scientific sources. I've mentioned many before, many again here, and even depending on what your basketball affiliation is, we still have really good sources of data and information. Duke, UNC, Wake Med, Baptist Hospital at Wake Forest and Winston-Salem is also good. And then national resources that we're familiar with, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins. And many parents have shared with me some of their insights and some of the research, and we've had good back and forth conversations about safety of vaccines, which I'm happy to report we have lots of really good confidence in. So we also have child health clinics in our 2 locations, and really well-trained immunization nurses who can give lots of information and answer questions to parents, as can Dr. Guthrie. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Guthrie to provide reminders about what we still have to be paying attention to in schools.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. So I'll give a quick overview and then a little more detail on the next slides. But as a reminder, new cases are still happening. So people are still testing positive for COVID. Even people who've had COVID before, as we know, did not have as much protection from new infections to Omicron as they maybe had to other variants. And quarantine and isolation are different, especially in schools compared to in the community. But reporting cases is still really critical and really important for public health purposes. Again, vaccine uptake is low, especially in our younger kids, and people need to take that into consideration when they are choosing whether or not to have their children wear masks in schools. It's not a situation where your kid, who may be high risk or not, is going to school and surrounded by other individuals who are vaccinated, which can be protective. But 3 out of 4 students, and if they are vaccinated, the other 3 in that group of 4 may not be vaccinated. So just keeping that in mind when families are making decisions about mask wearing. We'll talk a little bit more about the 5 days on the next one, and a reminder that testing is still a really important tool. As we lighten up on some requirements, such as masking, it's even more important that we do a good job of the hand washing and the distancing and the testing so that we can catch people early before they've exposed too many people. The notification methods for individuals who have tested positive, who've been exposed to those who've tested positive, has changed. It's lightened up a lot. Schools can choose what method they would like to use, and I just encourage you to be consistent in your methods. If there are certain situations in which you would do a certain type of investigation versus other situations, have those down and have those in writing so that we can be really fair and equitable to all of our students and families. So one option is the individual investigation and notification. That's what we've been doing all along, where if an individual tests positive, we notify those who have been around them, who are considered close contacts, and those individuals would need to quarantine per the current recommendations, and I'll get into those. However, a different option, which lightens things up a little as far as work for the nurses, is a group notification. So instead of trying to figure out every single person that a child was around, just saying, okay, this cohort is together, or this child is always with this class, so we're just going to notify the entire class, meaning the families, that they may have been exposed. And when you go that route, it is more simple, but that does mean more people need to wear a well-fitting mask for 10 days after that last known exposure to keep everyone safe. So it's always a trade-off with these things, right? And just a note on communication is that it's just really important, again, to be fair and equitable, that we notify families in different ways, because not everyone has access to cell phones or email. Sometimes you may need to send notes home and that kind of thing. A third option is just notification by school. So you send out a notification to your families that we had a positive in our school today, FYI. We still recommend sort of regular testing and checking in with people, but they don't need to do the 10-day masking, because it would be a whole school, and you would be doing that, at least right now, every couple days for 10 days straight. So keep in mind that the more people you notify at once, the recommendations for who has to mask change. So the group notification is a little bit of a balance of that, where maybe you don't need to test people quite so frequently, because you are testing people who are in a higher risk chance of being exposed. But those individuals do need to wear their mask for 10 days. On the next slide is just a summary, and there's a much better table in the Strong Schools guidance, but I just wanted to kind of try and break it down another way that's a little bit simpler for people. So if you have individuals with symptoms, you either have those who test positive, in which case the school notifies the local health department, because we still do some contact tracing and things outside of the school setting. And the individual who has symptoms and tested positive will stay home from days 1 through 5. Day 0 is the day your symptoms started. And then they can return to school for day 6 to 10, but they have to wear a mask to protect those around them. Now, if somebody has symptoms, they still need to go home until infection has been ruled out. And part of that can be seeing their primary care provider and deciding that a different diagnosis is more likely. But more typically, that's going to mean testing for COVID. And right now, in the Strong Schools guidance, those who are unvaccinated need to have a negative PCR. So nothing's changed for those who are unvaccinated. Previously, we required negative PCR for everyone. But what's changed is those who are vaccinated now only need a negative antigen test. So the quick rapid test, they don't have to wait 24 or more hours to get that negative PCR, because those who are vaccinated are less likely to catch it and less likely to spread it and less likely to have it. So that's why they get kind of the lower level testing that's still acceptable to return to school. And I will just say, a category I didn't put in here are those without symptoms who test positive, and essentially they follow the same guidance as those. Oh, no, sorry. What I was going to say is those who, I don't know what I was going to say. All right, no symptoms who test positive, sorry. Again, notify the health department. Day 0 is that positive test. So you don't have symptoms to go by. So day 0 is the positive test, 1 to 5 at home, 6 to 10 at school, again with a mask. And then you have your exposures, right? And so some of this is going to depend on what kind of notification you're doing. So if you're still doing individual notification, Bobby was next to Susie and Jim for more than 15 minutes on a given day, then we know that those individuals need to mask for 10 days. It used to be they had to stay home and get tested on day 5. Now they can stay at school full time, but they should still get tested on day 5. Those who are exposed, but it's a group exposure, so you get your notification if you're a parent that your child, someone in their classroom has tested positive, then as long as your child hasn't tested positive, they can continue to go to school, test on day 5, and the whole group will then wear masks during that time. So it's still a little bit of that 5 and 5, but really just for those who've tested positive. Pretty much everybody can go to school that's been exposed as long as they're not having symptoms, because then they're in the other section of the chart. And so you just need to kind of keep that in mind, that it is mask optional, but there will be times when the masks are not optional for the protection of the other students in the classroom. So I hope that that makes sense.
So Lauren, we'll take it back to you and see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, ladies. Any questions from the board this evening?
Board members, any questions?
Okay, this time we'll continue. If you all wouldn't mind staying on for just a few more minutes, we would appreciate it as we wrap up. But again, we appreciate you sharing our data this evening from the local health department. Here are some of our Granville County Public Schools specific data. As you can see, our case numbers are way down, reflecting what's happening in our community. We had 1 staff case and 1 student case last week, and the number of students and staff in quarantine and staff days absent were all down as well. Next slide. There's just, you can kind of see, towards the end of January, we had our peak of students in quarantine. Mid-January was our peak of student COVID cases with 168, and really just that downward trend as we've seen things begin to die down with Omicron over the last few weeks. Next slide. Same with staff. Again, seeing that peak kind of mid-January, and again, coming down as we've moved into March. Next slide. The board asked for some information on screening testing. So these are just some reminders from when we spoke about this in October. So the goal of all of our COVID mitigation strategies is to keep students in school, keep students and staff healthy. One of those strategies that you chose to adopt as a board was testing. Testing is an important mitigation strategy, but you remember all of our mitigation strategies work together. If you remember that Swiss cheese analogy that Ms. Harrison and Dr. Guthrie have used, when we lay all of those mitigation measures on top of each other, we are doing more to combat the spread of COVID in our school. Now, we recently removed a mitigation measure, going from required masking to optional masking. So we still have other mitigation measures in place. We have our screening testing, we have our physical distancing, we have our cleaning and hygiene, our ventilation changes that we've made throughout our buildings. All of those work together to help protect our students and staff and keep students and staff in school. So schools might choose to implement testing as a part of their overall prevention strategies to help detect cases early, reduce the risk of further transmission, and protect our students and staff from COVID. Screening testing is testing done on someone without symptoms or a known close contact. So this is not, I'm sick, I'm going to go seek out a test. It's a screening test that's done each week on people that are asymptomatic. And the recommendation from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, people that are fully vaccinated do not need to participate in screening testing. We certainly have some people in our school district that are participating that are fully vaccinated because they want that extra layer of protection, but they do not need to be required to do so. Next slide. So screening testing may be most valuable in areas with substantial or high community transition, areas with low vaccination coverage, and we've heard our public health partners talk about our vaccination coverage this evening, and schools where other prevention strategies are not implemented. So again, as we've removed that masking, this can still be an important mitigation strategy for us. It can allow us to evaluate and adjust our prevention strategies and facilitate safer participation in high-risk activities, such as athletics. As of February 18th, 89 out of 115 LEAs in North Carolina are participating in the Strong Schools K-12 COVID-19 testing program. So you can see a lot of our peer counties are participating in both screening and diagnostic testing at this time. Next slide. So just an overview of our program. We offer optional weekly pooled testing for any student or staff member that opts in. And then screening testing is required for 2 groups. Those are staff members and student athletes that are unvaccinated or chose not to disclose their vaccination status. Currently, there are 694 people registered for screening testing in Granville County Public Schools. That's 215 elementary school students, 173 middle school students, 135 high school students, and 171 staff members. Just a reminder that pooled testing means that they take a swab from 6 people and put it in the same vial. And that pool test is run. And then if that pool tests positive, then those people will come back to school the next day and be retested with an individual test. This allows our testing partner to process tests more quickly. So that's why they use pool testing. But it is, it does have, its drawbacks. We've had some, days when we had winter weather in the last few months, and that's caused some kids to not be able to come back the next day and retest. Certainly at the height of Omicron, we had some delays, as with every testing person in the state of North Carolina. I waited 6 days one day for a result from a different vendor. But we are typically receiving our results back in 11 hours from Mako, which is real fast. So that's just an overview of our testing program in Granville County right now. We will be, we're excited to share, we onboarded 4 temporary nursing staff today in our efforts to get up to the 11 that we spoke about a few months ago. So those folks will be starting work in our schools this week. We're really excited about that, and that will allow us to start offering some diagnostic testing on our campuses for those families. When their kid is sick and they want to get a COVID test right there before they leave school, they'll be able to do so. We think that's going to be a great service to our families as we move into the spring semester. Any questions?
Okay. Board members, questions about testing?
Yeah, I'm looking at this, reading this last one with regards to screening testing. I want to make sure I understand. And you said currently there are 694 people registered, and I see those listed at the bottom. But I want to understand the statement before that screening testing is required for staff members and student athletes that are unvaccinated or choose not to disclose their vaccination status.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where that 694 people are coming from?
No, ma'am. I mean, for instance, you see there, not all of those people are doing it as required. For instance, there are 215 elementary school students registered. None of those students are required to participate. However, their families have opted in.
Okay, so those students and then staff members there, and those are volunteers.
So-
But the mandates are on the unvaccinated or choose not to disclose there. The student athletes.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a combination in there.
Yes,
Thank you.
For
I
those
understand.
bottom 3 bullets, that would definitely be a combination of some that
Yeah.
are required and some that have opted in.
And the staff members. Okay, thanks, got it.
Okay. Other questions?
I'd like to suggest that we remove the mandatory testing for athletes. If I remember correctly, we originally were doing this because full teams were getting quarantined and not being able to participate. And so it's my understanding that now that the quarantine guidelines are no longer an issue, that it doesn't make sense to require the athletes to participate in testing. And if you wanted to make it optional, I think that would be acceptable. The other thing I'd like to point out is that the PCR tests are more sensitive to people who have had COVID. So if you've had COVID, like I had COVID in beginning of January or something, like technically for me, a COVID test would still prove positive, even though obviously I don't have COVID.
We don't test our students or staff within 90 days of a positive. So those folks are exempt for that 90 days.
They are exempt.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but even still, I feel like optional would be
So we
More
did
prudent.
still have teams that had to pause this winter, only 5, which is down from what we had in the fall, which was 9 teams that had to go on pause. One of the things that this allowed athletic teams to do was know early if there was an infection on their team, so other students could test if they chose to as well, even if they were, asymptomatic. So it allowed for the protection of students being able to stay in class and not be at home because they became infected. So that's, even though the quarantine guidelines are changing, it still allows for early identification of students, athletes that may be asymptomatic while being in close contact with their teammates.
But they're still in close contact at school. I mean,
Yes, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services put out a list of higher risk activities, and our athletics programs are rated as some are lower risk, some are moderate risk, and some are higher risks. So those are all there is more risk of catching COVID in those athletic programs than there is in sitting in class, because students are breathing more heavily, they are less able to physically distance, they are in close contact for longer periods of time. So those are listed as more high risk than sitting in class.
so something else that I'd like to kind of point out, though, is, and this is kind of, so my job is a high-risk category, right? So I'm a musician, and we've been masked and testing and all of that stuff. And as of today, our symphony stuff is no longer requiring testing, masking, or any of that. And while that is equally as high risk as students that are participating in sports, I don't feel that it's necessary to subject them to it unless they opt in.
Most of these kids are in close contact when they leave school at this point.
Yeah.
Weekends too, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Did I understand, Ms. Curtis, the diagnostic testing has not begun yet?
We'll be starting in the next couple of weeks, yes, sir.
Yeah. And so, in theory, if we were to get rid of the mandatory testing and a family opts in, then if there are symptoms or they're not feeling well, they can go and get that diagnostic test.
So there's two different, yes, sir. So the screening testing is a weekly test of asymptomatic people. The diagnostic test, if the child is in school, we're not going to invite sick children to come into school to take a test, but if a child's in school and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're not feeling well, and their parent has opted into testing, we would call that parent and say, hey, your child is not feeling well, you've opted into diagnostic testing, we need you to come pick them up, they've got a fever of 101, would you like us to do a COVID test before they leave, so you don't have to go take them to Hilltop or to the doctor or wherever it is that you usually go get your COVID test.
I mean, the other thing too is spring sports are all outside, so.
Our fall sports were mostly outside as well, when we paused 9 teams. I think only one of those teams was an indoor team.
Okay. Other comments or questions?
The only other question that I'm going to ask is, again, I mean, like, I know that we kind of heard about prom and like that Granville Early College is requiring testing to be able to participate in prom. And I guess I kind of have, I mean, like, kids are going to kiss outside of class. Like, they're going to be doing it beforehand, they're going to be doing it afterhand. And to have testing required for like the 4 hours that they're inside, you know, at a dance. I feel like that just, I mean, some of these things I just feel like they're unnecessary, because like this, we've already talked so many times about how the spread is happening out in the community. And our original purpose was to prevent kids from missing out on school. And so for us to be like continuing to reach out and like require these things just seem like really, I mean, like, it's unnecessary, you know? Because I mean, our job is to keep the kids in school, and if our quarantine isn't keeping that from happening.
How quickly, if we were to vote to take this away tonight, how quickly could you start diagnostic testing and do it quality?
I mean, again, they're two separate programs. They're not, screening testing is for asymptomatic people. So they're not, and also we don't have the staff to do it on every campus. We onboarded 4 temporary nursing staff today. That means I have 4 schools I'm going to be able to start it at soon. As I add more people, I will be able to add more schools. I will only be able to start that at 4, right now, 4 schools. Because that's where I will have somebody on campus every day, all day. I won't be able to offer it on campuses where I don't have a temporary nurse there every day, all day.
All right. Other questions, comments? Are you wanting to stay with where you are, move? What's the pleasure of the board? Do we move on?
I'd like to make a motion that we make testing optional for all people across the board and all events.
Talking about screening testing optional for all students and
All
staff?
students and all events, yeah.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. LeBrecq to make all screening testing optional for students and staff. Do we have a second?
You're talking about screening, not,
I'm talking about the mandatory testing that's like that the athletes are required to do, yeah.
That's screening, yes, ma'am.
right, okay. Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. LeBrecq. We have a second. Do we have further discussion? Questions you need answered, or?
I want to make sure I understand exactly your screening testing, and you're saying make it optional. I'm just going back and looking at what this is saying, what she just briefed. Is this exactly what you're talking about here, what she briefed with regards to screening testing, which they are saying it's still required of staff members? You're not worried about them. You're saying all students, athletes?
All students, for everyone.
Students and
Everyone.
educators.
So I believe currently it is not optional for unvaccinated athletes. It's not optional for certain events like prom, and it's not optional for unvaccinated staff.
Well, irregardless, she's saying completely optional for everybody.
The motion would change that, right, right.
Okay. Other questions? All right. As been in the past for masking and testing, we're going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
No.
Dr. McKnight?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Peace?
No.
Ms. LeBrecq?
Yes.
Dr. Houlihan?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes 5-2, and so that change will go into effect. All right. Do you have other pieces for your report?
No, sir.
I actually have another thing
Okay.
that I just wanted to ask. It was kind of brought up that there's like the parent-teacher conferences in person and the volunteers allowed in schools and stuff. It just seems like the different schools are doing different things across, and so yeah, I just wanted to get
I've asked the
clarification.
superintendent to brief us on that.
That'd be
You
great.
certainly have. If someone would give me the names of the principals you're talking about, I'll be happy to address them personally.
Okay.
We have leadership on Wednesday. I will address everyone as a group, but volunteers have been permitted for months now, and I've addressed it before. So at this point, send me the names of principals.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Because just making random statements is not sufficient. If this is happening, I need to know the names of the schools where it's happening. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Ms. Curtis, thank you so much.
Thank you, board members.
Board members, next on our agenda is 8.09. We added that at the beginning of the meeting, our Spectrum E-rate Category 1 contract. And Madam Superintendent, I believe this is Mr. Connor.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Mr. Connor, if you'll please come up, and Attorney Dubison, we may need a little assistance with this, but we have some E-rate information, and we got this late, board members. This was not presented to us in time to make the 4-day notice of getting information to the board. But it is important we get this information acted upon, if at all possible, because of the implications of not getting it acted upon in a timely manner. So, Mr. Connor, will you please share with the board?
Yes, good evening, board members. If you'll remember, back in the fall, I presented technology updates, and one of those updates was the fact that we had planned to increase the size of our data pipeline, our data circuits with Spectrum, from 1 gig throughout our school district to 10 gig. And we plan to do that because we want to make sure that we provide the adequate internet speed for the technology that we have, whether it be through video-driven curriculum. We have a lot of devices doing a lot of things and being used as instructional tools. So our plan was to update our current contract that we have through E-rate, through Spectrum, that's paid for. And I mentioned this to the board at the time, that E-rate funding pays 80% of the cost of our internet connectivity. 20% of that is a local match, but the state of North Carolina, fortunately for us, provides funding for that to pay the 20%. So basically, there's really no cost in the long run to our school district. And we thought that we were going to be able to update that contract and move forward, but due to some E-rate changes, Spectrum E-rate legal team came back and said, no, we're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to start the process over. File the Form 470, which is a request for what we want through the E-rate process. Go through everything with that E-rate program, and then people would submit bids based on what we want. Spectrum submitted a bid, and we've accepted the bid. It's the only bid that we received at the time, which is, it's a good one, so we're not complaining about that. But anyway, we accepted the bid. We have worked with our legal team to make sure that the contract that Spectrum provided to us is sufficient, and I know that Eva has worked with us to make sure that all the language is there, and there are a couple of things that she requested that we've requested from Spectrum that they're sending to us. But anyway, the reason for the urgency is that once this contract is approved by the board, then it will be submitted to E-rate in form of a Form 471, which says, hey, we are requesting, we have approval from our board, we followed all the E-rate protocol, and we would like to have this service approved by E-rate so that they will pay the 80% and so forth. The urgency was that this has to be filed by March the 22nd of this year in order for E-rate to take a look at it and decide whether they accept it, which, we don't anticipate any problems with E-rate, but that magical date of March the 22nd was the key date that we had to have it approved by, or the consequences of not having it done by then, we would have to wait an additional year to start the process. And I really believe with the technology tools that we have and how we use our internet throughout our district, that this 10 gig data circuit, it's almost like we're going from a small rural highway to the interstate as far as traffic is concerned, and the speed of our service and the ability for us to access and move data through the internet and through our network. So that's the reason that we had the urgency, the March the 22nd date. And I'm really sorry that we've had to go through this entire process again based on some changes that the Spectrum team said that were changed in E-rate were beyond our control, obviously, and that's basically where we are. So we would basically be in the same situation of what we wanted to do earlier. We just had to go through a lot of work, paperwork, and process to be able to make it happen. We'll still be in the same boat. E-rate will pay 80%, and the district local match is actually being funded right now by the state through the School Connectivity Fund. So that's basically where we are and why we've had to wait a lot longer than I wanted to be able to provide these upgrades that I think we desperately need and will need in the future as we move forward. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And board members, I hope you see the urgency.
I have a question for him, though.
Yes.
Yes.
This sounds like a great plan, and I know it's something that definitely is needed in the school system. But me being a District 1, and the locations I know of all of the schools, and this definitely, being able to support that, how is that internet, is that going to apply? Will the northern counties out there that we've just totally, when we had to go, virtual, just without much service at all? And I don't even think I've heard of Spectrum's name out that way. So,
So this actually, that's a great question. So this actually refers to the connectivity within our schools. So as far as the outside and the MiFis and the service outside of our school district, this has no bearing. This is the internet that our students will use inside of the school building.
Inside of the school building.
Yes.
Nothing to do with
No.
trying to get connected.
I wish. No, I wish.
No.
I had to ask a question there.
Sure, I understand.
We're still working on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we're going to have to work with the county on that.
Yes.
We are.
yes.
The school system has no bearing on that at all.
Right. But
None
when
at all.
when we went virtual and, for those 2 pandemic years here, did the county work with you all at all on trying to see what we could do to?
They've started a grant process, but they're kind of behind in where they should have been. But that's one of our big asks, I guess, that we keep coming with, that we really need it for the community.
The community needs to continue pushing that. We serve and have a lot of children there. Now, we've
Yes.
done things like the bus, the mobile bus, and what have you. But this particular urgent piece tonight is about Granville County school buildings.
within the school
And the
system.
buildings we have our, programs and children and teachers and educators in.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a great question.
Okay.
You need a motion to approve?
We do, yes, sir.
So moved.
Thank you.
We have a
Second.
motion to approve the contract as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. LeBrecq. Do we have any further discussion?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, thank you so much. All right, Madam Superintendent, we've moved to our finance section, 9.01, supplemental funds for teacher compensation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mrs. Hines is going to present this information straight from the state. Thank you so much, Mrs. Hines. This is new information that has come about, and I turn it over to Vicki.
Really good evening. Good evening, board members. The Finance Committee met on February 25th and discussed this additional funding allotment received from the state via Section 7A.12 of the Appropriation Act. And we have the actual wording from the legislation here just because it is there's a couple words that I want to point out for you here. This is a recurring appropriation, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And we have it noted there that it is specifically to provide supplemental funding for teachers and instructional support. And note there that it also says school administrators, but we're going to address that on the next slide. Again, this is for certified instructional support personnel. These are folks who are in the classrooms with our students. On the previous slide, it said it was also for school-based administrators. However, that is a very rare circumstance. It is only for principals and APs who are paid on the teacher scale, and that's simply a very rare situation. And at this time, we do not have principals or APs who fall in that category. Again, this may not be used for central office employees or for non-certified staff. So this is the same population of people who received a few of our previous state-funded bonuses. Next slide. So the requirements of this supplemental funding includes that obviously that the governing board, you guys, have to determine how to distribute the funds. Again, we said that funding is recurring. The state has said it's recurring. However, they have given the stipulation that it may vary from year to year. We don't know what that funding is going to look like from year to year. So we need to keep that in our mind as we move forward. This funding, this supplemental funding, is different from some of the bonuses we've talked about in the past, in that this funding, this supplemental funding, is to be treated as salary and is therefore subject to retirement. And again, this is state mandated. We, as the LEA, can determine the interval of payment. Supplemental funding across North Carolina happens differently in every county. In this county, for our certified teachers, we pay it twice a year. We pay half in December and half in June. But we can determine, as the board can determine, the interval of payment for this funding. Again, this is not restricted to state-paid teachers, which is terrific. The state is providing funding for teachers who are not state-paid, and that does not always happen. We can include all teachers with the exception of our state-funded pre-K, state-funded Title I funded pre-K, simply because that's not K-12 education. And the funding, the allotment we have received that has actually dropped down into our accounts, we received in February of this year $724,633. When we net the FICA and retirement, that comes up to the $550,000 figure. When we looked at all of our staff as of March 1st, that comes up to 456.2 teachers and instructional staff. Again, this is classroom-based, and we'll get to why we're talking about that 0.2 in just a second. And with the available funding, we're recommending a $1,205 supplement per full-time teacher. And there is that note there that would be prorated for part-time based on their percentage employed, because we do have, and that's where that 0.2 comes from, is that those part-time staff that we have. And the recommendation from the Finance Committee is that we pay all eligible teachers and instructional support staff, and that we prorate part-time, again, based on percent employed. And we have determined that NC pre-K funding can pay for those pre-K teachers as well. So all of our teachers would be able to get this supplement. We are recommending to pay the total supplement as soon as possible, March 31st. And the idea is to get this funding into our teachers' hands as quickly as possible. Are there any questions?
We are excited about this recommendation tonight. These are state dollars that have been dropped to local districts, and you've heard the description for whom these dollars are intended, and we don't have discretion with that. But I think the committee has done a fine job of trying to equally disperse the rate of $1,205 to instructional staff and teachers.
So board members, this comes to you as an action item. It's also being recommended by your finance committee. And so as an action item, what would be the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion.
I have a question. I guess I'm a question person this afternoon here this evening, because I want to get an understanding on this last slide where this is you're going to pay all eligible teachers and instructional support staff. Prorate. Then it says pre-K teachers will be paid using NC pre-K funds. My question is part of this funding here is for pre-K funding, or are you saying no? Is that why you made that statement?
That's correct. We cannot use these funds for pre-K teachers.
You cannot use it
But
for
we
pre-K.
will pay pre-K teachers using North Carolina pre-K funds.
Okay, so are you saying they will get an increase?
Yes,
But it's
ma'am.
using the end, okay.
Using
That's
another
good.
pot of money.
I see, thank you.
Excellent question.
Okay. Any other questions? So I believe we had a motion by Ms. Williams, and did I hear an amen for Mr. Pease?
I'm in that mood today.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed.
It's wonderful. We should have some happy teachers on March 31st. We're excited about that.
Board members, just as an item of housekeeping, if you can give me 2 more topics, then we'll take a short break. I know we're going late, but that way we'll take a break if you need to use the restroom or anything like that. So go ahead, Ms. Hines.
Mr. Chair, this next topic is along this same line. This is about our GCPS retention bonus plan, of which we are extremely excited, and this will be a joint plan with Mr. Jamar Perry, Mrs. Vicki Hines, and Mrs. Courtney Curran. We've been working collaboratively. This team has worked extremely hard to try to help create something for our GCPS employees, and the word is retention. We want our employees to know Granville County appreciates them, and we want them to stay in Granville County Public Schools. So I turn it over to this team. I'm thrilled about this presentation, and so I turn it over to you all at this time.
Thank you, Dr. McClain. Good evening again, board members. Tonight we bring forth to you a GCPS Employee Retention Bonus Part 2. If you recall, back in the fall, we offered a retention bonus to our employees to be paid in January of this year, in the amount of $1,500, I believe, or $1,000, excuse me. But tonight we bring forth a retention bonus that's payable in 2 parts, one part in April and another part in the fall of this year in the amount of $1,500. Just as you heard tonight, we've been pleased with the work that our staff members have been doing. They've gone above and beyond, sacrificing, giving up their planning periods, picking up extra loads from vacant positions in be it custodians, nursing, social work. Our employees have gone above and beyond, and they are certainly outstanding. And we want to make sure that we keep those outstanding employees here in Granville County. Additionally, we are always recruiting for quality candidates. And so when we recruit those quality candidates, we want to be able to retain them as well. So tonight we present to you a formal presentation on a retention bonus for the remainder of this year and in the fall. Next slide. So the overview is for our permanent full-time employees, we will offer them a gross payment of $1,500 for full-time certified and classified. If you notice the presentation that Mrs. Hines gave, it did not include classified employees. So that did not include your teacher assistants, your cafeteria workers, your bus drivers, or your custodians. It only included the certified staff, but this, if approved, would cover those classified employees. The first installment of $750 will be paid in April, and the second installment will be paid again in October of this fall. So we want to encourage our employees to stay with us again until the end of the year and return back at the start of the new school year. So staff must be employed as of March 1st of this year. Just as we did in the fall, we had an opt-in form for employees to say, yes, I'm going to remain with the district, or if I don't, I'm required to pay it back. So they are aware that they must opt in order to receive this bonus or this retention bonus. If they don't opt in, they will not receive it. But if they don't stay with us during that time, they are obligated to return payment. So staff must be employed as of October 31st in order to receive the second payment. Okay. Next slide, please. And for our part-time employees, the amounts are just slightly different. It is $750, so we reduced that amount in April and October. But again, they must complete the opt-in forms as well. All right, this is just a overview of what our previous opt-in form looked like. So it was required. It was just a quick survey. Fill in your name, your GCPS timekeeper ID number, and select yes or no whether or not you are going to accept this retention bonus. And I will say our department goes back, and for individuals who selected no, we individually call them and say, is this what did you intend to check this, just to make sure we didn't skip anyone. So our departments between finance and HR, we work together to make sure that all individuals are included. Just as I stated, we work conjointly to make sure that all of our employees will receive the bonus if they do opt in. So there are checks and balances to make sure that the correct people are paid.
So really, the estimated number of staff, this is based on our January payment that we made. Full-time staff, 773, part-time, 45. So the total cost would be $1,284,534. That is the cost of bonus plus the FICA that's required. I will back up for just a second, and that number does depend on the number of staff who opt in.
So our plan for this is that we would utilize the ESSER funds as an allowable expense, so that that funding is there for us to be able to utilize. And so our recommendation is that you approve the retention bonus for eligible GCS employees as presented using ESSER funds.
Okay. Board members, do you have questions for the team? All right, again, this comes to you as an action item tonight. And so the recommendation from staff is to approve the retention bonus for eligible GCPS employees as presented using ESSER funds. What would be the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Peace. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Anderson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, thank
Our
you.
employees certainly do thank you all for this. Thank you.
I believe you have the next.
They do. They have the next item, 9.03, is an item where we're going back, and I'd like to turn your attention to the start of the year when we talked about recruitment bonuses. And so, Mr. Perry, will you take it away? Let's talk about recruitment bonuses, and we sort of want to go back and make some things right, and this is why we're calling it amended.
Thank you, Dr. McClain. Just as we presented back in the fall, we are constantly recruiting for our vacant positions. It's that time of year where employees are starting to make decisions on whether or not they're going to remain with the district, or they're going to retire or seek other opportunities. But so we are constantly looking for new people to come aboard and rejoin the Granville County Public Schools family. So we know that the quality of the teacher in front of the students each day makes a key difference to the instruction and to the success of those students. So it's important that we have a quality educator in front of each of our students each day. We want to make sure that we include all of our certified classroom teachers. That include your alternative entry individuals, those individuals who may not have gone through a teacher education program, but are willing to go back and complete the courses, complete the assignments, the lessons, take the appropriate testing, and do what's necessary to complete a licensure as a licensed teacher, fully licensed, continual licensed teacher. And also to attract teacher assistants. We have a number of teacher assistants in our district that hold bachelor's degrees. And what can we do to convince them to join that pipeline to become a teacher? So sometimes it takes a little nudging. So we are working with universities to make sure that we can provide opportunities for those teachers, those TAs, to become teachers. And we also want to be able to compete. It's a competitive market. We're not only competing against our neighboring school systems, but we're also competing against private industry in our communities and in our counties that surround us. We just provide some comparisons of what some other districts were offering as far as supplements and sign-on bonuses. And I'll turn it over to Mrs. Curran here, who has been leading some of those efforts of marketing, as well as I want to acknowledge Angela Cogdell, who's not here with us tonight, as far as the recruitment efforts.
So we have increased our newspaper ad presence. That's something that we made sure that we kept at the forefront this year, and I have to give a big shout out to Ms. Kathy Bradley because she does a lot of that work for us and is a great liaison with our newspapers. But we have increased our ad spread quite a bit in our newspapers. We also, of course, have our social media marketing campaign. As of right now, our job ad engagements have reached 83,196 different people on social media, their accounts. Our job fair, which we just posted last week, we have a local job fair coming up on April 30th. That's already reached 1,005 accounts. So we're really making sure that we're putting our name out there. We're getting information out there. And we're on LinkedIn as well. We've already reached 2,563 accounts on LinkedIn. So we are making sure that we're recruiting every day, and Ms. Cogdill is at recruiting events all the time. That said, as of February 21st, we still had 27 vacancies. And so, 11 of those are at elementary, 7 in middle, and 9 in high. You can see EC, ESL, and AIG vacancies are also high right now. The ESL and AIG vacancies that you see there, which total 5, have been open all year.
Are those included in the total number?
They are included in the total number, yes. Next slide. So we have our first proposal is that in addition to our exceptional children's classroom teachers, we also include our English as a second language teachers and academically and intellectually gifted teachers in that $3,000 sign-on bonus or incentive bonus, because they are so difficult to staff, and we want to make sure that we are acknowledging the hard work that they put in every single day. And we are recommending that the other 2 stay as they are.
I do want to add one point, that the ESL certification and AIG certification are completely different from a core certification. So those individuals are taking additional courses in order to be ESL certified and to be AIG certified.
We would also like to make sure that we are acknowledging our staff members who return to us.
Yes.
So we would like to include returning employees to Granville County Public Schools and our teacher assistants who are now certified teachers. We feel like that is something that is just amazing that they have decided to make that jump for us, and so we want to make sure that we are acknowledging our TAs who have come to teachers. So the other requirements would still be the same, that they have a start date between July 1st and September 30th. They teach in their content area, and they are employed on the day that we give that payment. We are also wanting to prorate for anyone who begins after October 1st still. So that would also retroactively go back for those positions as well. So you can see here our estimates. Did you want to jump on this? Okay.
So those estimates are for our existing staff. So this is for 21-22. We have, you can see the numbers. I won't go through each of them individually, but you can see that the total staff that we're talking about are 14 who are returning to GCPS and 9 who are TAs who've come back as teachers. And the grand total cost for this is $61,906.
And we are suggesting that we utilize state low wealth funding and federal ESSER funds as an allowable expense to cover these costs. And we did want to also point out that the AIG and ESL are included in there, even though they are currently vacant, in case we had somebody who came on here at the end of the year.
So our recommendation this evening is to include TA to teacher candidates, include former veteran employees to GCPS. They must have a separation year of at least 1 year or greater. You want to make sure to not avoid having individuals jump back and forth to try to receive a sign-on bonus. And then to move to the top tier, ELL and AIG, or ESL and AIG teachers to the tier 1 of the sign-on bonus.
Board members, do you have questions for the team? Okay, this does come to you as a recommendation. You see the recommendation there on the screen. What would be the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve as presented.
Have a motion by Dr. McKnight. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. LeBrecq. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank y'all for doing that.
Thank you. Great collaboration, team. Thank you. A lot of details there.
Board members, we're at 9:12, so if you can be here, back here by 9:20. Keep in mind, there's still work to do, so use this as a quick break, and so we are at a break right now. All right, board members, we're back in session now. Our next item of business is 9.04, a K-12 athletic facilities grant. Madam Superintendent?
Oh, this is so exciting. This is a grant we found. It actually came to us. This is from the state of North Carolina. And you know us, we're just not going to leave money on the table. So this is a $115,000 grant our team has worked on, again, collaboratively, to find ways to use it. You know, we didn't have a problem doing that. So I turn it over to Mrs. Vicki Hines and Mr. Bill Graham.
You hit the highlights, basically. The state has given us an allocation, and yet we have to apply for that, for the actual funding. We don't want to leave money on the table, so I'll let Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Vicki. Dr. McLean wanted us to make sure that we spread around the largesse, so that everyone would benefit. So we had a meeting, Mr. Timberlake, the athletic director, and he was in contact with some of the schools. He also already knew a lot of their needs, as well as Mr. Clement in the maintenance department was very aware of some needs. So we identified needs from these campuses so that you can see that we have high schools and middle schools represented for all of this expenditures. So that was a driving force behind it, that we wanted to make sure that it was equitably distributed as much as possible. So we're really pleased with that we're able to take care of some of these pressing needs.
So there are many more needs, many more needs athletically. Yeah. But we did not want to leave any of our schools out, and that's what you see on the screen, and the team will be applying for this grant very soon. So this is just an information item tonight.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Can I ask a question, though, really quickly? I just want to make sure, because when we did the $40 million grant request, there was a thing on there that said, like, you can't have gotten any, like, wasn't there, like, a thing on that you couldn't have gotten, like, another request successfully submitted or something like that? I just want to make sure this isn't going to, like, impede that, right?
This is not like that.
Okay.
This is not like that.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, our next item is 9.05, West Oxford Elementary's dual language program. Board members, if you remember, this was presented to you a while back, and then we spent some time at our work session learning more about it. And now comes the fun part, how to pay for it. All right, so Ms. Hines?
Thank you, board members. At the February 7th meeting, you all directed Beth Day and the Finance Committee to look at the financial component of the proposed dual language program and bring a recommendation back to the board. At the Finance Committee on February 25th, we looked at the original presentation with West Oxford staff, and Beth Day met with Principal Bonamere to kind of really look at the most conservative estimate possible. And yes, thank you. Just as a reminder, one of the stipulations that West Oxford really honed in on is that this is not really a short-term program, that the program takes 6 years to implement and actually see results from the program, and really just wanted to emphasize that point with them. At that point, we were looking at potential costs of $150,000 to $300,000. Beth Day and Principal Bonamere sat down and came up with this conservative budget for the dual language program. The components are curriculum materials, $25,000, a dual language coordinator, $75,000, and one of the pieces of the dual language program is that there is a co-teacher in the classroom. So there are two certified teachers in the classroom. So instead of a teacher assistant, you have a certified teacher. So that $30,000 is the difference in cost between the teacher assistant and the certified teacher position. So the total estimated budget would be $130,000. So the recommendation that comes to you all is, number one, that there's a commitment to this program for a minimum of 6 years. Also, the Finance Committee did determine that we were able to use restart funds to the extent possible yearly. We anticipate 22-23 funds. Right now, it's looking at about $85,000. We do recognize that those funds will vary yearly, depending on their ADM. We're recommending that we use district textbook funds for their curriculum because that's what those funds are for, and that leaves a balance of about $20,000, and we would just reprioritize other funds within the budget to make that work. Obviously, using restart funds as much as possible because that's the purpose of restart funds. Are there any questions?
Any questions, board members?
I have a question, yeah. So you're suggesting, your recommendation was to have this go for a minimum of 6 years, and on the original proposal, they're saying for a minimum of 10 years?
The purpose of the minimum of 6 years is because we know that you're not going to see any benefit. You won't necessarily see the results that we need to see within that 6 years. So basically, they really wanted to avoid going 3 years down the line and giving up because we don't see anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess my question was just, so you're basically saying though, even at 6 years, you're only just going to start to realize the benefit at that point.
True.
Instead
That's
of
true.
going
And that's
to the full 10 years.
minimum. Exactly.
Right. So I guess my question is your recommendation 6 years because financially we just can't see anything longer than that?
No, that's simply the minimum.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment. In the handout we got in the academic committee meeting, just thinking about the fact that we already have 81 students in West Oxford attendance zone attend other Granville County Public School elementary schools, and 122 additional students that would qualify for this type of program attend charter schools. It's a possibility that, we may obviously pick up some students because this is a very attractive option.
And this is not something offered at any charter school in our district, especially in the Oxford area. So
Is West Oxford, is this a choice school?
It is?
yeah,
It
it's
is.
a global
So,
school.
potentially people from down in Creedmoor could also come up and use this if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, we're hoping so.
Yeah.
We're hoping.
I do have to say, this is the quietest finance committee meeting I've ever attended. And I think it was because we were really grappling with, we know the needs there, how are we going to come up with the way to pay for it? I think I've done an excellent job of shifting funds around and utilizing funds to be able to do that. All right, so board, this does come to you as an action item. Again, you see the recommendation from the staff is a minimum of 6 years for this program, using budget dollars the way they have it broken down here. And so what would be the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion, we approve it.
All right, so we have a motion by Ms. Williams. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Dr. McKnight. Is there any further discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, congratulations, Principal Bonamere.
We're so excited. This is going to be wonderful. I'm certain.
Very nice.
And she's out.
I was going to say, she's gone. Get it started.
Let's
Check
get it
that
going,
one
girl.
off. Let's go to the next one.
Yes, on to the next.
All right, let's see if we can clear the room out with the next few.
Speaking of checking.
I believe our next item is 9.06, our audit contract, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, this is something we would have had on consent this evening, if I can be perfectly honest. Everything is there for you. I turn it over to Ms. Sines.
Absolutely. Board members, you have the contract with Anderson, Smith, and White, PLLC, for the performance of our external audit, financial audit for the year ending this year, June 30, 2022. It's the same audit firm we've been using for several years, and the audit fee is remaining consistent with previous years, with a total anticipated cost of $35,800. Do you have any questions?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Houlihan and a second by Mr. Peace. Do you have questions or comments? All right. They get giddy at this point.
They're
giddy.
familiar with this.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, thank you so much. The next item of business is 9.07, our budget amendments. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. We have just one amendment this evening.
Well, we have our first budget amendments in a couple different funds. In our state funds, the amendment is with our restart funds, just to adjust funding based on program needs. There's neither an increase nor a decrease to the total budget. It's just a change of coding within the budget. The next amendment is within our local fund. Again, this is not an increase or decrease in funding, but moving the budget for yearly maintenance of athletic fields from the athletics budget to the facilities budget. The next amendment is within the federal grants fund. There are a few adjustments within program funds for EC, as well as updates to the allocations for CTE, EC, and ESSER II funds. The total increase in federal funds is $15,952, with a total ending federal appropriation budget of $25,042,182. And the last amendment is within the other restricted fund. This is allocating the additional $2,945 in revenue received by the recycling program, as well as allocating the budget for the $595,178 K-12 COVID testing program grant. The total increase in other restricted funds is $598,123, with a total ending budget of $4,694,791.
Ms. Hines, may I ask a question about that last one?
Absolutely.
The 595, whatever that number is for the COVID testing, is there more to come? Or because originally we had heard over and over this $700,000 number?
This is all that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay. All right, and that's going to hire nursing?
We're supposed to hire nurses.
Okay.
And this
I
is
don't know that we've been able to hire nurses, so this could very well be.
This is the diagnostic testing that Ms. Curtis was talking about earlier.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Board, this does come to you as an action item. Do you have, what would be your pleasure first?
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. LeBrecq. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. McKnight. I failed to ask you, do you have any questions for Ms. Hines? All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, our next item is the financial update. Madam Superintendent.
Absolutely. Ms. Hines has that for us this evening.
Board members, you have the financial update in front of you as of January 31st, 2022. At that point in the year, we are 58% through the fiscal year. Our percentages are in line, and our expenditures are in budget in each of those funds. Do you have any questions about that piece of the financial update? Okay. And next, you have the report on COVID funds as of January 31st. The first page, this is the same type of report that's been presented to you in previous months. The first page is by program that the funds have been designated for by the state. Our total expenditures to date, or as of January 31st, are $7,991,280. Our total allotment is $25,042,440. So we have a balance of $17,051,160. The next page shows those amounts graphically by program. And then the remaining pages reflect those same expenditures, but only by the type of expenditure or object code. You can see on the charts on the last page that the majority of the expenditures, 68.5%, are salary and benefits, as we would expect. The next largest expenditure is listed as supplies and materials and includes the computer purchases that we've done over the years. Any questions about these COVID funds? Okay. So the next report we have is on board member travel through January 31st. The budget for the current year is $6,316. Expenses to date are $1,502.82, which leaves a remaining balance of $4,814.18. You can see on the report the expense breakdown by board member as well as by the type of expense over towards the right. Do you have any questions about this?
Okay. All right, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I think Ms. Hines did an incredible job tonight.
She did.
She did.
Great.
Wonderful.
She never did that for any of us.
She should come every time.
All right, board members, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion that we adjourn to closed session in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A6, A3, A5, and Section 115C321 for personnel and attorney-client privilege. Do we have a motion for that?
Mr. Chair, may I add to the closed session motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, to consult the board's attorney with regard to IM&TR versus Granville County Schools and MR by and through parent PR versus Granville County Board of Education, OAH file 21 EDC 05428.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so moved.
I have a motion by,
Second.
you're not going to repeat it? I have a motion by Ms. LeBrecq and a second by Mr. Peace. Do we have any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so we'll give them some time to close everything down. Session now. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the personnel report as amended in closed session.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. LeBrecq. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Board members, you see your upcoming events and announcement dates there. Please make sure that you have those on your calendar, especially the Superintendent's Leadership Summit that we're taking a part in. Madam Superintendent, do you have anything else?
No, sir. We'll have our State of the Schools address on the 24th. Look forward to getting more information out to everyone.
Board members, any of you have anything? All right, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. LeBrecq and a second by Dr. Houlihan. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We adjourn at 10:40.